masterpieces. Forget a year, even 10 years wouldn't guarantee Fang Jian could accomplish it. Fang Jian began to speak, but what he shared first was not his own journey's observations. Instead, he recounted the nation's history. This history was entirely unfamiliar to Mr. Beethoven. Fang Jian was no historian, he could only recount what he knew and had learned to the best of his ability. At first, Mr. Beethoven didn't listen attentively. For him, no matter how thrilling Fang Jian's words might be, it was merely a story. Yet as Fang Jian continued, his expression grew serious. Only after finishing that historical account did Fang Jian begin to explain the significance of the Red Road to this nation. It was precisely through the hardships of the Red Road that this force forged an iron will. In a sense, those trials and tribulations served as a crucible, tempering this force into an indestructible weapon. Finally, Fang Jian shared his own observations from the journey. This nation, perhaps, still had many shortcomings and aspects open to criticism. Yet its stability and prosperity now allowed the vast majority of its people to live and work in peace and contentment. After a long pause, Fang Jian finally fell silent. Mr. Beethoven fell into a deep silence. He spoke slowly. Mr. Fang, hearing your account weighs heavily on my heart. I cannot compose music that meets your expectations at this moment. Please grant me some time. Fang Jian smiled faintly. Very well. He paused briefly before adding, you may also discuss this with other pianists. I am confident that great music will emerge from your hands. Mr. Beethoven nodded firmly, then looked up at the sky. Mr. Fang, I've recently composed 2 new pieces. Would you be interested in learning them? Absolutely. I'd be delighted. Fang Jian was filled with joy. He never imagined Mr. Beethoven could bring him such an unexpected surprise. That evening, another 365 days passed. This time, Fang Jian learned only 5 new pieces. 2 were Mr. Beethoven's new compositions, while the other 3 had been composed over the course of the year. Moreover, Fang Jian noticed that the intervals between Beethoven's compositions were growing increasingly longer. Evidently, the inspiration he had accumulated over so many years was nearing depletion. It seemed that even when he wanted to present new compositions in the future, he would have to exercise a bit more restraint. When Fang Jian awoke on the comfortable bed in the hotel room, he realized it was already afternoon. However, after sleeping for so long, the accumulated physical exhaustion and mental fatigue seemed to have vanished along with the hours. Fang Jian's body was once again brimming with vitality. He pulled out his phone, swapped in his original SIM card, and logged into WeChat. Beep, beep, beep. Countless missed calls and a barrage of text messages nearly overwhelmed him. WeChat was no different. While Zhang Tao's messages were expected, other friends had also sent concerned greetings. Especially Wang Donglian, whose messages outnumbered even Zhang Tao's. Fang Jian felt deeply touched. Even though he wasn't keen on dealing with her, her genuine concern made her a friend worth keeping. Then, Fang Jian tapped open her chat window. Then, Fang Jian regretted it. Damn it, I shouldn't have harbored any illusions about this kind of woman. What the hell was she talking about? When did I ever say I wanted to kill myself? Besides, even if I did, what business is it of yours? What's it to you if you come along? Oh, and now you're dragging Luan Wani into this? I confess to him. Fang Jian silently hung up and blocked her number. Better to steer clear of crazy women like her. But after another thought, Fang Jian unblocked her. Well, how should I put it? She went out of her way tirelessly to compose a song for me. Even if it wasn't a great contribution, it was still hard work. He knew exactly what kind of person she was, ignoring her would suffice. But if he blocked her... Fang Jian shook his head and sent Zhang Tao a message. I'm heading back. Then he picked up his phone and silently counted in his mind. 1, 2, 3, 8. Sure enough, the phone rang. No need to look, it could only be Zhang Tao. Hello? Hey, you big dummy. You're still alive, huh? Zhang Tao's slightly flustered voice came through the receiver. Hearing that familiar voice, Fang Jian felt a strange warmth in his heart. What could be more touching than knowing someone cared so deeply about you? Zhang Tao, calm down, Fang Jian said cheerfully. I've finished composing my piece. Put. Zhang Tao snapped. Why haven't you answered calls or replied to messages these past 2 months? Fang Jian replied leisurely, it's a brand new creation. I couldn't let outside distractions interfere. I switched SIM cards and turned off WeChat. How could I reply? Zhang Tao froze for a moment, then cursed again. Ha? Don't you welcome me back? Fine, that really hurts. Looks like I've got inspiration again. The line fell silent. After a moment, Zhang Tao cautiously said, Fang Jian, you... Never mind. Let's talk about everything when I get back. Fine. I'll be back in about 3 days. That far? Where are you? Given China's extensive transportation network, 3 days was ample time to travel from east to west or north to south. Fang Jian chuckled. I just finished composing a piece and need some time to organize things. But don't worry, I'll be home within 3 days. Alright, I'll wait for you to come back, Zhang Tao said. Don't you dare stand me up. Pfft, real men never break promises. Zhang Tao hesitated before asking, Fang Jian, I need to ask you something. What is it? You haven't thought about suicide or self-harm, have you? Fang Jian's face darkened. Thankfully, Zhang Tao wasn't standing right in front of him, otherwise, he'd have kicked him without a second thought. Like hell I would. After hanging up, Fang Jian felt a headache coming on. He couldn't fathom how that little girl, Wang Donglian, had started such rumors, why even Zhang Tao had become like this. Zhang Tao hung up the phone and cursed under his breath. What the hell possessed me to listen to that little brat Wang Donglian's nonsense? Fang Jian? With his temperament? He wouldn't commit suicide even if his heart was broken, let alone if a fire broke out. But though he'd been skeptical at first, Fang Jian had suddenly cut off all contact. 1 day without contact, 2 days without contact, half a month, 2 months. This bastard had no choice but to believe it. More importantly, through certain means, they had already traced Fang Jian's new car to Ruijin, Jiangxi. But the car was left in storage by Fang Jian himself, and after that, he vanished. Although he had agreed to leave it for a few months at the very least, or up to a year at most. But without seeing him, they were constantly on edge. Thus, Zhang Tao had truly been led astray. Now that he'd received Fang Jian's call, a huge weight lifted from his heart. But the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. So he casually dialed a number that had been harassing him constantly these past few days. Wang Donglian, Fang Jian just showed up. Oh, he's back? The young woman's voice over the phone was filled with both surprise and delight. Just from the sound of it, one could sense how overjoyed she was at that moment. Why didn't he answer my calls? For some reason, more than half of Zhang Tao's anger melted away. He grunted and said, Fang Jian said he was focused on his work and didn't even turn on his phone, so of course he couldn't answer. He's finished composing now and is organizing the music. He should be back in about 3 days. Did he mention where he is? No, but he should be near Ruijin. He'll definitely be driving back. Okay, I understand. Thanks, Brother Zhan. Zhang Tao opened his mouth to curse, but the words wouldn't come out. After a moment, he added, Wang Donglian, Fang Jian seems pretty upset about those rumors about you. You'd better watch your step. What rumors? He's working on his writing, yet you spread rumors about him committing suicide. Any normal person would be furious. Zhang Tao shook his head. When he gets back, I'll take you to apologize to him. After a moment of silence, a somewhat subdued voice came from the other end. I understand. Thank you, Brother Zhan. Wang Donglian hung up the phone, biting her lower lip lightly as she felt her face flush fiercely. So he really had gone to work on his writing. Oh, how could I have thought he was going to kill himself? Sigh, it's all Xinchu's fault for insisting on that red path nonsense. What should I do? He must have seen those words and be furious. But as long as he's safe, that's what matters. Fang Jian tidied up, checked out of the hotel, and booked a train ticket. He needed to return to Ruijin first to retrieve the car he'd left in storage before heading home. He couldn't very well abandon his bike after traveling the Red Road. The next day, Fang Jian arrived at the parking lot where he had left his car. When paying, the attendant marveled at the sight. This was the first time he'd encountered a customer like Fang Jian. Just as he finished washing the car and was about to get in, a sudden gust of wind swept past him from behind. Fang Jian's reflexes were lightning fast. Without hesitation, he sidestepped. Fists clenched, body tense, heart racing, ready to strike at any moment. Then, he saw a familiar figure rushing toward him. Oh no! Fang Jian immediately withdrew his fist and spread his arms wide. I really didn't mean to take advantage. If I hadn't caught her, she would have crashed to the ground. Then, a warm, soft body crashed into his arms. The next moment, something covered his mouth. Beside them, the car washer who'd just finished cleaning the vehicle stared wide-eyed. Damn it, did you two come here just to rub it in? Chapter 79, Chess Grandmaster. The car sped along the highway. Fang Jian drove, occasionally glancing at the backseat through the rearview mirror. His heart felt a bit chaotic. He had to admit, the fiery passion of that bold young woman had touched him. But damn it, fear was overwhelming him. Girls who dared to love like that were usually even more capable of hating. The mere thought of Zhang Tao's warning set off alarm bells in Fang Jian's mind. His resolve softened. At the highway service area, Fang Jian pulled over and was about to get out when he caught sight of those large, sparkling eyes in the rearview mirror. He said, Hey, you initiated this sneak attack. Don't expect me to take responsibility. Wang Donglian retorted irritably, What are you thinking? I'd never make you take responsibility. Wishful thinking. Fang Jian frowned. Was that you wish referring to her wanting him to take responsibility? Or that expecting me not to take responsibility was wishful thinking? Damn it, flirting with girls is such a hassle. She speaks in riddles, leaving me to guess her true meaning. Thank goodness it was just an accidental touch. If I'd actually gotten hands-on, then it wouldn't be a pipe dream, it'd basically be a done deal. Ah, the 5 girls and the bathhouse ladies were so much better. Fang Jian actually felt a bit nostalgic. But now his standards were higher. Even if he went to the bathhouse, he'd probably run away in embarrassment. After resting for half an hour at the service area, the two got back in the car and finally returned to Yongcheng a day later. This time, after exiting the highway, Wang Donglian's expression finally returned to normal. Mr. Feng, hand it over. Ha? What? Your new composition, Wang Donglian said with a smile. After all that time out gallivanting, you're back now, time to deliver the goods. Feng Jian turned his head, looking at her in confusion. Damn it, am I the seasoned veteran here, or are you? But Wang Donglian's gaze was crystal clear, without a hint of anything unusual. Feng Jian suddenly felt unsure. Maybe I'm just overthinking this. Clearing his throat softly, Feng Jian said, I do have a song, but give me a couple of days. Let me rest up. Wang Donglian's lips turned down slightly. Alright, you have been working hard these days. You should take a break. Her eyes flickered. Take me home. Feng Jian quickly replied, no way. I have to meet Zhun Tao now. You can go if you want. Walking a girl home wasn't exactly a good idea. Especially with Wang Donglian. Feng Jian wasn't falling for that. Leaving Wang Donglian to sulk alone, Feng Jian drove straight to Zhun Tao's villa. Zhun Tao had already received Feng Jian's call and was waiting inside. As soon as he saw Feng Jian get out of the car, he strode over, about to give his good buddy a fist bump. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly spotted a familiar figure. His raised fist froze mid-air. Damn it, how are you two together? His expression turned utterly bizarre, tinged with suspicion. After returning from Ruijin, shouldn't I be the first person you see? Why did you go see her first? And even if you wanted to see a woman, shouldn't you have seen Luan Wani first? Feng Jian sighed helplessly. I ran into her in Ruijin. Could you please give her a ride home later? Ruijin? Ran into her? Zhun Tao's expression grew increasingly peculiar. He felt as though he'd just heard some earth-shattering news. If this news were to leak out, it would likely cause a stir within certain circles. The eldest daughter of the Wang family actually pursuing a man herself. And she'd gone all the way to Ruijin. Wait, if I spread this around, might I be silenced forever? Wang Donglian stepped out of the car, her expression indifferent. Where's Sister Qingxin? Is she home? She's here, inside. Zhun Tao pointed. Wang Donglian waved to Feng Jian and said, Teacher Feng, looking forward to your new work. With that, she dashed inside. Zhun Tao lowered his voice and asked, what's going on? Feng Jian spread his hands helplessly. You're asking me? Who the hell am I supposed to ask? Zhun Tao instantly understood. He whispered, you really don't like her? Feng Jian replied sternly, I've thought it through. A lady of noble birth? I'm not worthy. A girl of humble origins suits me better. Zhun Tao looked utterly disgusted. You talk a mile a minute, but the core idea is just about looks, isn't it? Alright, now that you're back, are you leaving again? I'm not leaving until I attend your wedding. Fine. Only then was Zhun Tao satisfied. After a moment, he added, oh, by the way, Luan Wani asked me about you. Feng Jian's eyes lit up. What did she say? What else could she say? Just a friendly inquiry. Feng Jian instantly lost interest. So it was all for nothing. Zhun Tao spoke slowly, but she mentioned wanting to thank you for helping her find that part-time job. She'd like to invite you over for dinner at her place. Dinner, at her place? Feng Jian froze, then his face lit up with delight. Zhun Tao's gaze suddenly softened with a hint of pity. Feng Jian, Luan Wani has always been beautiful. She's had plenty of admirers. Her family has many relatives and friends, and even more people have tried to set her up with potential partners. Feng Jian raised an eyebrow and chuckled, what? You think I'm not good enough? Not at all, Zhun Tao chuckled. Actually, I heard from Li Qiong that when he first met Luan Wani, he was utterly captivated and wanted to pursue her. Then what? Retreated? Feng Jian exclaimed in surprise. That was an interesting choice of words. Yeah. Luan Wani's parents, one's an amateur chess master, the other a painting professor at the academy. If you visit their place, one will drag you into a chess match, and you can't refuse. The other will pull you into art discussions and insist on teaching you to paint. You can't fight them, you can't scold them, you just have to dodge them. Feng Jian chuckled at this, then said, I see. They look down on Li Qiong. Zhun Tao roared with laughter. You're spot on. They want Li Qiong to back off. He paused, then added, but still, visiting her place means you'll have to face this hurdle. Feng Jian pondered for a moment, then nodded slightly. I see. Thanks. He grabbed a bag of gifts from the car and tossed it to him. This is for you. I'm heading back to rest. Zhun Tao shook his head, glancing at the bag in his hands. Yang Ai Mao phone? Strange. That stuff, isn't that tea from Guizhou? But isn't this guy in Ruijin? Feng Jian returned home, cooked himself a delicious meal, ate his fill, and went to sleep. When he heard Luan Wani wanted to invite him to dinner, Feng Jian was genuinely thrilled. But after being startled by Zhun Tao, he suddenly felt it would be best to wait until he was fully prepared. Chinese chess, painting. No problem. Before going to sleep, Fang Jian first sent his dad 100 million yuan, reminding him that he needed to talk to him tonight. Sure enough, after Fang Jian fell asleep, or rather, barely closed his eyes, his father roused him. "What is it, son?" Fang Jian smiled. "Dad, 3 things. First, find me a chess master I want to learn." His father looked puzzled. "Why suddenly learn chess?" "Well, my future girlfriend, your future daughter-in-law, the mother of my future grandson, her father is a chess master." His father immediately understood. He nodded emphatically. This was important. "Also, find me a few painting teachers. I want to learn that too." "Painters?" Dad paused, then asked, "Is your future mother-in-law a painter?" "Oh my!" Fang Jian looked at his father-in-law in surprise. Now the mother-in-law was getting involved too? "You're more eager than I am." The father seemed to realize his own overzealousness. He chuckled and said, "Any other requests?" "Just say them all." Fang Jian thought back to when he'd driven Wan Wani home last time. She'd mentioned her family situation. Dad was a chess enthusiast, mom was a painter, and she had a younger brother who played ball. But he didn't play soccer, he played basketball. "Dad, then find me another basketball player." "Basketball? Why?" "My brother-in-law likes basketball." "Just in case." "He likes basketball?" Dad froze. "Didn't you say last time he liked soccer?" Fang Jian hesitated before saying, "He used to like soccer, but now he likes basketball." "Oh, what a fickle kid," Dad grumbled. "Anything else?" "Nothing else, but you can tell Masterly I've completed my internal energy training and want to learn the next level of martial arts." "That's good." Old man nodded vigorously. "So what are we learning today?" This time, Fang Jian had so much to learn that he couldn't decide. After a moment's thought, Fang Jian said, "Let's start with Chinese chess. As a Chinese person, I should learn Chinese chess." "All right." Dad waved his hand through the air a few times and said, "I've found you a grandmaster. Is that okay?" "Grandmaster?" "Of course." Dad made a few gestures, then beckoned toward the circle's edge. Soon, a middle-aged man stepped inside. His gaze was steady, his hands rather large. "Greetings, gentlemen. My name is Yang Guanli. I am a grandmaster of Chinese chess." Chinese chess, originating in China, is a 2-player strategic game with a long history in the country. Its simple equipment and engaging gameplay have made it an immensely popular board game activity. It boasts a rich heritage, captivating gameplay, and straightforward rules. Its popularity among the Chinese populace far exceeds that of Go, making it the most widely played board game in China. It has spread to over a dozen countries and regions. However, due to the rapid and profound changes in modern society, many things have faced unprecedented challenges. Chinese chess is no exception. Few young people today show much interest in it. At the very least, Fang Jian and his son were unaware of Yang Guanli's fame. Nevertheless, after his self-introduction, both father and son expressed profound respect. Yang Guanli, hailing from Fenggang town in Dongguan, was the first champion of the Chinese Chessmen's National Individual Championship and attained the title of Grandmaster in 1982. Having played chess his entire life, he had mastered its fundamental strategies, though he might not surpass today's top grandmasters. But guiding Fang Jian? That was no problem at all. With his father gone, Fang Jian seized the precious opportunity to dedicate himself fully to learning. Fang Jian settled his mind and diligently studied chess under Grandmaster Yang Guanli. Chess, at its core, is a seemingly simple game. On a square grid, players use their 16 pieces to achieve checkmate against the opponent's king. Yet within this simple game lay countless strategic variations. After playing 2 games with Fang Jian, Yang Guanli immediately recognized that the young man before him was a complete novice. His understanding of the game was limited to knowing how each piece moved. He knew each piece's movement but hadn't even memorized the most basic chess patterns. Thus, having collected ample Jaws paper, Grandmaster Yang commenced his first lesson in the underworld. What is the most fundamental aspect of playing chess? Everyone says it's talent, but in truth, the most crucial thing is memorizing opening sequences. Of course, while memorizing these patterns, one must also grasp why certain moves are made and what consequences arise if they are not. Often, the outcome of a game of chess doesn't hinge on either player's innovative breakthroughs, but rather on who has memorized and mastered more opening sequences. The primary reason professional chess players consistently outperform amateurs. The primary reason is the absolute disparity in the number of chess games each has memorized. Thus, Fang Jian embarked on the arduous journey of memorizing chess games. In the past, Fang Jian would never have had the patience for this. Even with a grandmaster supervising him, he would have found ways to cut corners. But after his journey down the red road, Fang Jian had undergone a profound transformation. Memorizing chess games was no longer an unbearable burden for him. Thus, over the course of a full year, 365 days, Fang Jian memorized countless chess manuals. In his matches against Grandmaster Yang, he even managed to secure several draws and victories. Though the odds were low and it might seem like cheating, his chess skills had undergone a complete transformation compared to his earlier days. A year later, Yang Guanli appeared extremely happy. What more could one ask for than being able to teach chess even in the afterlife? Fang Jian suddenly remembered something and asked, Grandmaster Yang, chess is constantly evolving, with more and more opening variations and game records emerging. What if I encounter a move you haven't taught me? Yang Guanli chuckled, don't worry. Up until this year, I'd been studying all the game records from domestic competitions. I know exactly what openings are popular now. Fang Jian was stunned. How can you, a ghost, still keep tabs on the living world? Yang Guanli sighed. Before I passed away, I instructed my descendants to burn the latest game records to me each year. Ah, they did well at first, but now they've gradually become perfunctory. The records they burn are dwindling. I wonder which year they'll stop altogether. Fang Jian finally understood, yet a lingering doubt remained in his mind. Burning chess manuals, Yang Guanli could receive them. But could burning joss paper and offerings be blown away by the cold winds of the underworld? How utterly bizarre. Ah, matters of the underworld best not to pry. Fang Jian immediately shut his mouth, pretending he hadn't heard a thing. After Yang Guanli left, father came over. Father and son exchanged a few words, then father dismissed his son with disdain. Before the birth of his eldest grandson, the old man had never looked kindly upon Fang Jian. Early morning, after washing up and exercising, Fang Jian was eating his medicinal broth. Suddenly, a phone call came in. Master Fang, it's Liang Chao. Do you remember me? Fang Jian laughed, Master Liang, of course I remember. This was the Sanda Master Zhan Tao had hired at great expense, a provincial champion and national silver medalist. He was undoubtedly the top dog at the boxing gym. Master Fang, some people have come to our gym claiming they want to challenge us, Liang Chao said in a low voice. I recognize two of them, they're friends of that Hu Bin from last time. Fang Jian's brow furrowed slightly. Why this guy again? Even after losing an arm, he still won't back down? How many are challenging us? One person, Liang Chao's voice was low and heavy. I can't beat him. Oh, you sparred with him? Yes. I lost pretty badly. Fang Jian was puzzled. Though Liang Chao hadn't trained in genuine martial arts, he'd at least been involved in combat sports for over a decade. For him to say he lost badly meant it was truly a crushing defeat. A thought struck Fang Jian. Did you tell Zhan Tao? Not yet, Liang Chao replied with a wry smile. Even if I told the boss, it wouldn't matter. Besides, this guy came here specifically to challenge you by name. Alright, then don't tell Zhan Tao. I'll be right over. Fang Jian hung up the phone, feeling somewhat annoyed. His medicinal soup had just finished simmering, and he'd only eaten half of it before this happened. No one would be happy about that. He wolfed down the rest of the medicinal meal in a few hurried bites. Fang Jian got into his car and sped straight to the boxing gym. The gym's doors were tightly shut, and voices could be heard shouting inside. Fang Jian nodded to himself. The people here were smart, knowing they couldn't win, they'd close the gym. Otherwise, word getting out would surely damage the gym's reputation. He pushed open the door. Instantly, a chorus of respectful greetings filled the room. Master Fang has arrived. Master Fang, hello. Master Fang has finally arrived. Chapter 80, Seeking Justice for his junior brother. Fang Jian smiled and nodded, walking in at a leisurely pace. Inside the boxing gym, besides familiar faces like Liang Chao and the others, there were 4 additional people. Though only 4 in number, they held an absolute numerical disadvantage. They stood or sat beside the ring with great swagger, their expressions haughty, almost acting like they owned the place. Liang Chao immediately stepped forward to greet him. Fang Jian could see clearly that his gait was slightly unsteady, and his left arm swayed unnaturally as he walked. Fang Jian's expression darkened slightly. Where are you hurt? His left hand? If he remembered correctly, it was his left hand that had been broken by a single punch during his last sparring session with the tall, dark-skinned man. Liang Chao pointed painfully at his left hand and said, Master Fang, that seated guy, he's the one who attacked me. His hands are heavy. I took a bit of a beating. Heavy? It's okay, no fracture. Liang Chao hesitated before adding, at most, it's a hairline crack. Fang Jian nodded slightly, about to step forward. Liang Chao suddenly called out, Master Fang, be careful. He can also unleash a loud crack with his external force. Fang Jian halted in his tracks. Though he hadn't been particularly concerned before, this remark suddenly piqued his interest. A resounding crack from his external force? Fang Jian certainly wasn't arrogant enough to believe he was the only one capable of delivering a punch at the peak of external force. With a country this vast and a population of over 1 billion, there were bound to be prodigies who stood out. Of course, those capable of unleashing peak Ming Jin power were generally unlikely to be athletes. Real athletes, except for heavyweight boxing champions, didn't earn nearly as much as people imagined. But most crucially, the difficulty of cultivating genuine martial prowess within those severely restricted competitions where so many things are off limits. So when Fang Jian heard those words, he felt a hint of surprise. But more than that, he felt a surge of excitement coursing through his veins. Damn it, finally, a real opponent. Had he encountered this man before choosing the red path, Fang Jian would have been filled with anxiety and self-doubt. But at this moment, his heart was filled with nothing but joy, not a shred of fear remained. Nodding firmly, Fang Jian turned and walked away. Liang Chao and the others exchanged glances. Master Fong's expression seemed genuinely delighted? Had we misread him? Hearing that his opponent was so formidable, he was actually still happy? Could this be the biggest difference between us and Master Fong? Fong Jian walked slowly forward, approaching the edge of the ring. At that moment, the seated man also rose to his feet. Standing at about 1.8 meters tall, his muscles were dark and iron hard, giving off an unsettling, heart-stopping aura. Of course, Fong Jian could tell this wasn't mere dead muscle. As the man raised his arms, every muscle group seemed to pulsate slightly. One could only imagine the immense power unleashed when these muscles were fully engaged. You must be Master Fong. My name is Hong Xiuqi. I've come today to seek justice for my junior brother. He stated his purpose directly. Fong Jian smiled faintly. Your junior brother is. Master Fong, you broke his arm last time. Have you forgotten so quickly? Another man stepped forward, sneering coldly. What? You're not scared, are you? Fong Jian silently appraised the man before turning away, ignoring him completely. This gesture perfectly conveyed his utter contempt. It was as if he were saying, a dog barks, but what does it matter? Everyone saw it clearly and burst into laughter in unison. Though they couldn't fathom how a mere glance could convey such a powerful message. But that didn't stop Liang Chao and the others from laughing out loud. After all, when Liang Chao had just been struck and injured, the other party's mocking laughter had been just as unrestrained. The man's face flushed crimson with rage, yet he dared not challenge Fong Jian. At most, he could only bare his teeth and bark a few defiant barks. Hong Xiuqi's brow furrowed slightly as he clasped his fists and asked, Master Fong, would you accept my challenge? Fong Jian smiled. Master Hong has traveled far to be here. It would be poor hospitality of me to refuse. Excellent. Master Fong is a man of his word. Then let us proceed to the platform. The two men ascended the platform separately, then donned their protective gear with the help of their friends. Looking at the gloves on his hands and the various knee pads, helmet, and other gear covering his body, Fong Jian sighed inwardly. For most people, this gear served as protection. But for a true martial artist, they felt like shackles trapping their true potential forever within. In the Qing dynasty, when martial artists clashed, they didn't have all these trinkets on them. They signed life and death contracts before stepping onto the stage to fight. Admittedly, this inevitably led to numerous casualties. Yet those who emerged victorious from such brutal conditions were undoubtedly true masters. Both external force and internal force were frequently documented during the late Qing and Republican eras, yet they are rarely seen today. It must be said that human society is indeed progressing towards civilization. Yet for martial artists, this world represents the dead end of the martial path. After both men came to a halt, Hong Xiuqi slightly lowered his stance. Fong Jian was astonished to see that instead of bouncing around, he had anchored himself in a solid horse stance, immovable as a mountain. Whether it was Zhan Tao, Liang Chao, or any other boxer he had encountered before, once they stepped onto the ring, their feet seemed to be fitted with springs, never stopping for a moment. It seemed as though they couldn't defeat their opponents without it. But was this bouncing style truly appropriate? According to Master Li's teachings, lifting both feet off the ground was a cardinal sin in combat. To kick effectively, one must first master the immovable stance. Yet at this moment, Hong Xiuqi's stance held a certain presence. Standing there, his body seemed fused with the ground beneath him, as if rooted to the earth. If 2 or 3 strapping young men tried to push him now, they might not be able to budge him. Fong Jian's eyes grew even brighter. A master, a true master. Just by observing his stance, one could tell he was the most formidable opponent Fong Jian had encountered since Master Li. If Brother Wu had a gun in his hand, he could certainly take him down with a single shot. But if both sides were unarmed, then, this fight wouldn't even be necessary. Fong Jian focused his mind, spread his feet apart, and raised his hands. Both men suddenly moved, charging toward each other simultaneously. Fong Jian stepped leftward with his left foot, simultaneously transforming his left fist into a palm. His arm bent slightly, using his wrist as an axis to sweep upward and outward in a small arc. His elbow, hard as steel, slammed toward Hong Xiuqi's left cheek. At the same moment, Hong Xiuqi sidestepped to evade while simultaneously kicking out. The target of this kick was none other than Fong Jian's lower abdomen. Both men launched attacks directly at their opponent's vital points, and crucially, neither had used their gloved hands. In conventional combat, the hands are undoubtedly the most agile weapons. Forget about claims that every part of the human body is a weapon, or how devastating elbows and knees are in Muay Thai. In actual combat, the most frequently used weapon remains the fist. Under normal circumstances, they account for over 60% of all offensive techniques. Because fists are the longest limbs of the upper body, offering the greatest chance of striking an opponent. For true masters facing off, injuring an opponent with elbows or knees is far more difficult than using fists. The reason they aren't used today is because of boxing gloves. Hitting someone while wearing these things might not even penetrate their powerful muscles. They each dodged the other's lethal strikes and immediately launched new attacks. Their exchange was lightning fast, as if every move were instinctive. Lethal strikes followed one after another, leaving no time to defend against them. Chapter 81, The Black Market Fighting Master. Below the ring, Liang Chao and the others watched with jaws dropped. Liang Chao, in particular, had assumed that while he might not match these two, it was merely a matter of his cultivation not being refined enough to unleash the thunderous impact. Beyond that, he believed he wasn't significantly inferior to them. But in this moment, Liang Chao finally understood. He finally grasped the truth. Compared to these two, it was best not to court death. After a few more moments of combat, Fang Jian suddenly stepped forward with his right foot into a floating stance. Simultaneously, he pressed his left palm downward in front of his lower abdomen, palm facing down, while his right fist abruptly flipped upward, forward, and downward in a crushing strike. The strike was blindingly fast. Though Hong Xiuqi had dodged with all his might, Liang Chao's fist still caught up and struck him. Thud! 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 3 consecutive blows landed squarely on Hong Xiuqi's arms. This time, Fang Jian used his fists. Yet his attack wasn't a heavy punch, but a rapid succession of jabs. Hong Xiuqi stumbled back half a step. Though his arm throbbed with excruciating pain, his gaze remained unwaveringly resolute. It was as if that arm wasn't his own, and he felt no pain. With a flick of his right hand, he delivered a vicious blow to Fang Jian's temple, sacrificing his left arm to absorb the impact. Though the boxing gloves prevented him from unleashing his full power. Even so, had that punch landed, Fang Jian would likely have fallen instantly. Yet Fang Jian, already prepared, lightly pushed off with his toes and deftly dodged like a swift swallow. Crack! A deafening crack echoed beside his ear. Hong Xiuqi's punch was indeed delivered with full force, possessing peak external strength. But alas, if the punch missed its mark, even the greatest force was useless. Both men shifted their bodies simultaneously. Hong Xiuqi glanced at his left arm. The skin there had already turned red. While it wasn't broken or anything, it still stung like hell. Good. Below the ring, Liang Chao and the others cheered loudly. They all believed Fang Jian had done this deliberately. Since Hong Xiuqi had injured Liang Chao's left hand, Fang Jian was now returning the favor by targeting his opponent's left arm. Hong Xiuqi withdrew his gaze and fixed it on Fang Jian. Suddenly, he asked, Yanwang Sandian Shou? Baguazhang? He was startled inside. He never expected to encounter a true martial arts master here. Fang Jian chuckled lightly. The 8 major techniques of Baguazhang. I'm afraid it's nothing special. The 8 major techniques represented the combat essence and core of Baguazhang. Each move could be practiced individually to hone technique and feel the force, or linked into a seamless sequence. Fang Jian had studied under Master Li for a long time before finally grasping a bit of its essence. Unfortunately, when executing the 8 major techniques, it wasn't just the fists that mattered. The subtle shifts in the fingertips played a significant role. Performing the 8 major techniques while wearing boxing gloves significantly diminishes their power. Take the simplest example. Without gloves, when Fang Jian attacked an opponent's face, he would extend 2 fingers to pierce their eyes. But with gloves on, he could only punch the face. Regardless of the actual damage dealt, the psychological pressure alone is vastly different. Similarly, using knuckles to strike vital points like the temples is far more effective than using fists. But such techniques have long been banned in modern combat sports. Hong Xiuqi stared intently for a moment before suddenly remarking, Master Fang, the fighting style you've learned isn't for performance, nor is it for sports like Sanda. Fang Jian chuckled, that's right. I'm a martial artist, and so are you. Recalling the ruthless precision of his opponent's strikes, Fang Jian knew such a fighter would never grace a legitimate ring. Otherwise, a single round of punches would send his opponent straight to the hospital. And that was with him holding back. Hong Xiuqi's mouth twisted into a grimace. He suddenly signaled his companion to step forward and remove his gloves. Liang Chao and the others immediately erupted in a commotion. Fang Jian was also puzzled. They'd barely started fighting, why remove the gloves now? Hong Xiuqi said in a deep voice, Master Fang, fighting like this is pointless. There are too many restrictions. Fang Jian's heart stirred. What do you mean, Master Hong? Are you suggesting we fight without protective gear? Hong Xiuqi nodded. Exactly. When we spar, we shouldn't be weighed down by all that unnecessary junk. His eyes gleamed brightly, almost bloodshot. Fang Jian chuckled, alright then, let's do it. No. Hong Xiuqi waved his hand. Master Fang, if we truly fought, neither of us would hold back. The result would inevitably be one of us falling. Back home, such a fight wouldn't be allowed. The other person would either run away or end up in jail. Fang Jian raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want? Hong Xiuqi looked serious as he asked, Master Fang, have you heard of the open sea boxing matches? Illegal fights. He fights in illegal matches. Liang Chao suddenly shouted from below. Hong Xiuqi gave him a cool glance before replying, that's right. I fight in underground matches. So what? Still want to give it a shot, young man? Liang Chao's face paled instantly. He clamped his mouth shut tight, his eyes darting nervously. Hong Xiuqi sneered disdainfully. Master Fang, I'd like to challenge you to an underground fight on the high seas. On the ship, once we step into the ring, there are no rules. Even if we kill each other, there's no legal liability. Hearing these chilling words, Liang Chao and the others fell silent, frozen with fear. They came to the boxing gym to practice combat, claiming to be enthusiasts of the sport. They appeared to be rough-and-tumble types, always looking for a fight. But in this society, unless you're a complete fool, you might get into a fight, but stepping into the ring for a life or death match? Unless driven by momentary impulse, how many would dare? Fang Jian watched him silently, feeling a twinge of hesitation. At the end of the day, there was an essential difference between him and the other man. Even after training intensively with Master Li, even after achieving spiritual elevation and mastering the hidden force, he had never taken a life with his own hands. He certainly couldn't match the other man's flippant disregard for life and death. Ha, Hong Shouqi chuckled, where I come from, killing someone carries no consequences. So dying at someone else's hands is just as meaningless. He added, of course, if Master Fang thinks this is unwise, then forget it. Consider it never said. Fang Jian looked up and saw the undisguised mockery on his face. At that moment, Fang Jian finally understood why this man could unleash such explosive power. Because he was the kind of fighter, like those masters from the late Qing and Republican eras, who fought with his very life on the line. Every time he stepped onto the underground boxing ring, if he didn't kill his opponent, he would be the one to die. Such a man was truly a human beast. Master Hong, he absolutely wouldn't dare. We should leave. The man who had spoken earlier said smugly, his gaze toward Fang Jian and the others brimming with provocation, as if he couldn't wait for Fang Jian to agree immediately. Hong Shouqi stared at Fang Jian, his expression unreadable. Master Feng, you can't fight. Liang Chao couldn't wait any longer. He immediately stepped forward and whispered, if the boss finds out you're fighting in the black market, he'll definitely scold us to death. Fang Jian chuckled wryly. After a moment's thought, he suddenly asked, Master Hong, have you ever hit a punching bag? Hong Shouqi paused, replying, of course I have. Though he fought in underground matches, who among serious martial artists hadn't trained on a punching bag? Fang Jian glanced around the gym. 4 punching bags hung nearby. He walked over, stood before one, and said, Master Hong, let me throw a few rounds. Watch me. If after I'm done, you still want to invite me to fight in the underground, then I'll gladly oblige. The crowd exchanged puzzled glances, unable to fathom what Fang Jian was up to. Punching a sandbag for others to watch? What was the meaning of this? Could a punching bag compare to a real opponent? Anyone could hit a punching bag, but a person could dodge. Never heard of scaring people by hitting a punching bag. Fang Jian offered no further explanation. His gaze fixed on the punching bag before him, his eyes narrowing. His heartbeat suddenly quickened. Chapter 82, Striking the Sandbag with Hidden Force. Hidden Power. This was actually another term for a boxing technique's power generation. The so-called hidden force is the next level of power that emerges after the body is trained to its utmost limit, reaching the peak of manifest force, and achieving the 1000 gold per strike level. To cultivate hidden force. Reaching the pinnacle of overt force and achieving that thunderous impact is the prerequisite. Only after reaching this stage can one continue to cultivate mental strength and refine the skin and hair. When one achieves a deeper level of control over their body, they can make more precise and subtle adjustments. The world's top athletes pay meticulous attention to detail in their respective sports. This is precisely why. Details determine success or failure. Therefore, when a martial artist at the peak of external strength can master every detail of their body's surface and adjust the center of gravity along the spine and tailbone, enabling the tendons, bones, and outer membranes throughout the body to become interconnected. Then, combined with the surging power of the mind, they can unleash a higher level of hidden force. This is what is referred to as opening the run and do meridians. The primary meridians along the spine are the run and do meridians. The power generated within the body through movement is channeled through the pores, transforming into hidden force that is unleashed. Of course, this concept may seem somewhat mystical, as the release of hidden force must be synchronized with the power of the heart. When this punch is delivered, the heartbeat suddenly accelerates, causing a surge of blood flow in that instant to provide the body with greater power. Otherwise, the body's natural strength alone cannot generate hidden force. This is somewhat akin to ingesting excessive stimulants, or to the heightened secretion of adrenaline experienced during states of excitement, fear, or intense emotion. Except that when the heart surges with power, the increase in adrenaline is far more than just a little. At that moment, every pore on Fang Jian's body instantly closed as his heart surged with power, unleashing a punch. Thud. A profoundly muffled sound, as if someone had let out a massive fart under a blanket. Then, everyone saw it. The sandbag split open. The outer layer of the sandbag had actually been torn apart by that single punch. Yet the sandbag itself didn't sway under the force. Instead, countless grains of sand poured out from the ruptured opening, scattering down like flowers scattered by a celestial maiden. Sweat instantly poured down Fang Jian's body like rain. After that single punch, his pores opened wide, releasing a torrent of perspiration. Yet his movements remained agile. With a light leap backward, he dodged the sand, preventing it from splattering onto his body. Fang Jian came to a halt, turned, and smiled at Hong Shouqi. Hong Shouqi's facial muscles twitched violently. He stared intently at Fang Jian, then suddenly clasped his fists above his head and declared, "Master Fang, you are truly honorable." With that, he turned and walked away, unwilling to linger even a moment longer. Behind him, the others who had followed exchanged bewildered glances. What was going on? Fang Jian had thrown a single punch and shattered the sandbag. As fellow combat sports enthusiasts, they had all hit punching bags before. They knew it was nearly impossible for an ordinary person to break one. But if a sandbag had been hit for a long time, it could eventually tear, right? Could Fang Jian have deliberately chosen an old, worn-out sandbag? Yet after shattering the bag with a single punch, Hong Xiuqi didn't even utter a single threat before slipping away. Exactly. Judging by his demeanor, everyone knew he'd gotten scared and fled. Otherwise, given how cocky he'd been moments before, he would have insisted on inviting Fang Jian to fight in the underground matches. But he didn't dare mention it again. "Let's go." The group exchanged glances before finally muttering under their breath, slinking away in defeat. Behind them, Liang Chao and his crew erupted into unrestrained cheers and laughter. Fang Jian smiled faintly, inwardly breathing a sigh of relief. Before choosing the red path, he couldn't have been certain he could defeat this man. And even now, he couldn't guarantee he'd survive to the end in a life or death battle. Indeed, he had mastered the art of hidden force. He could deliver blows with a single punch that ordinary people couldn't withstand. But on the life or death stage, anything could happen. What if his hidden force failed to connect? Such a surge of mental energy placed an immense burden on his body. It wasn't something he could unleash casually like a peak external force punch. While a single hit could end the fight, if several punches missed, it would be his turn to take the blows. Of course, under normal circumstances, both opponents are evenly matched. There's no way they wouldn't find an opportunity for a direct clash. The only fear lies in that one in a million unexpected turn. "Master Fang, you're truly formidable. Please take me as your disciple." Liang Chao leapt forward and prostrated himself once more. Witnessing today's battle, he finally understood what was mere showmanship and what was genuine skill. Fang Jian helped him to his feet and said, "Let's go to the hospital first for an X-ray and get your arm properly treated." Liang Chao's eyes lit up. "Master, you agreed?" Fang Jian replied impatiently, "I can teach you. How much you learn is up to you, but you still can't call me master." "Ah, thank you, master." Liang Chao was overjoyed. "How should I begin training?" "Start training?" Seeing his eager expression, Fang Jian knew Liang Chao hadn't taken his arm injury seriously. Shaking his head helplessly, Fang Jian said, "Follow me." "Master, where are we going?" Fang Jian paused and gave him a silent, lingering look. Liang Chao immediately clamped his mouth shut, daring not to ask another question. They got into the car and soon arrived at a hospital. Only then did Liang Chao understand. He gave a wry smile and said, "Master, it's just a minor injury. It'll heal in a few days." Fang Jian replied in a deep voice, "To practice martial arts, the most important thing isn't enduring hardship, but taking good care of your body. Otherwise, before you achieve anything, you'll ruin yourself first." Liang Chao opened his mouth, feeling a strange, inexplicable warmth in his heart. At the boxing gym, Zheng Tao finally received the news and rushed over. Although Fang Jian had specifically instructed not to disturb Zheng Tao. But with so many people around, once Fang Jian and Liang Chao left, the news inevitably reached Zheng Tao's ears. Upon entering the boxing gym, the crowd was still buzzing with excitement over the recent fight. Many gathered around the shattered punching bag, though the scattered sand had long been swept clean from the floor. Yet the shattered sandbag remained hanging there for all to see. No one dared to take it down. It made sense. That seemingly simple punch had shattered the sandbag. Even if you told someone about it, they probably wouldn't believe you. "Brother Zhan." "Hello, boss. Brother Zhan's here. Come see." Surrounded by the crowd, Zheng Tao approached the sandbag. He stared at the torn wound, gesturing with his hand, and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Damn it, if that punch had landed on me, would I even be alive? After all these years of fighting Fang Jian for the top spot, he's still alive? Zheng Tao's mouth twitched as he looked up at the ceiling. Should I thank Fang Jian for sparing my life all these years? At the rehabilitation hospital, Hu Bin lay in bed, shifting restlessly. His leg had undergone surgery and was encased in a cast. He wouldn't be able to get out of bed for at least 3 months. This actually constituted assault. Even though it happened during a match on the stage, this kind of informal competition wasn't protected by law. If someone wanted to press charges, they'd be sure to win. Yet, over half a year ago, he had personally broken Zheng Tao's leg in the ring. There's video footage, witnesses, hospital records, and more. If he were to sue Fang Jian, he'd be dragged into it too. So despite his family's boiling rage, they dared not retaliate. After all, Fang Jian had Zheng Tao backing him. If they made any moves, the Zhan family wouldn't let it rest. Chapter 83, Cold Sweat. Hu Bin picked up his phone, staring at it expectantly. His brow furrowed slightly as he shook his head. Why hadn't the message come yet? Today, he had finally managed to recruit a true master. Fortunately, that bastard Fang Jian had broken the tall black guy's arm. Otherwise, this expert would never have agreed to step in. He had promised if he could break one of Fong Jian's legs, he would pay Master Hong 1 million yuan. In some people's eyes, that kind of money could even buy a life. Now, clutching his phone, he waited for his henchman to deliver the good news. Though good news had already arrived once, it wasn't the one he'd been most eagerly anticipating. After pondering, he opened WeChat again and rewatched the earlier match between Hong Xiuqi and Liang Chao. These two fighting each other. How could this even be called a fight? It wasn't a fight at all. It was Hong Xiuqi effortlessly crushing Liang Chao with overwhelming dominance. Hu Bin felt a pang of dissatisfaction. He could clearly see that Hong Xiuqi had held back. Otherwise, he could have easily broken Liang Chao's arm instead of merely injuring it. Still, his primary target wasn't Liang Chao, so this outcome was acceptable. What he truly craved was witnessing Hong Xiuqi brutally beat Fong Jian, leaving him utterly defeated, limbs broken and shattered. As for the other minions, they could be spared for now. Just as impatience was consuming him, his phone finally rang. So? Hu Bin demanded with a vicious grin. How many legs did you break on that punk? A timid voice came from the other end, Brother Hu, no broken legs. What? Master Hong and that kid fought, but it ended in a draw. Then Master Hong invited him to fight in an underground boxing match on the high seas. Illegal fights? Hu Bin froze, then burst into elation. Here, the most he could do was break one of Fong Jian's legs. That was the legal limit. In a fight like this, even if someone broke a leg or arm, as long as no one reported it, the police wouldn't bother. As the saying goes, no complaint, no investigation. But if someone died in the ring, or if the blows were too severe and left someone permanently paralyzed, the police wouldn't be able to ignore it even if they wanted to. But what if the fight took place on the high seas? Hu Bin's eyes lit up. No way, I have to see this. I need to see with my own eyes the moment that guy gets beaten to death by Master Hong. The very thought sent a wave of exhilaration coursing through him. Did that kid agree? He hasn't agreed. He didn't agree? Hu Bin's voice shot up an octave. How could he not agree? The henchman inwardly scoffed. Fighting in underground matches meant risking death. Why would anyone agree? Of course, he dared not voice such thoughts to his boss. Instead, he cautiously replied, Boss, he did agree in the end, but Master Hong ran away. What did you say? Hu Bin thought he'd heard wrong. Boss, I sent you the video. Take a look. Hu Bin hung up the phone impatiently and immediately opened the video his assistant had sent. He'd requested it. He wanted to see Fong Jian's pitiful, wailing form on the ground. Then he saw it, the entire fight between Fong Jian and Hong Xiuqi on the stage. The camera work was amateurish, with no editing, just a raw recording of their movements from an awkward angle. But Hu Bin still broke out in a cold sweat. So ruthless, so vicious, so formidable. Both of them were ruthless fighters. After watching this match, everyone would share a similar feeling. That raw, unfiltered intensity, the sheer determination to strike from the very first moment, the unmistakable intent to knock the opponent out cold, it's impossible to fake. The fighting style portrayed in movies might look good, but it could never capture this kind of genuine, life or death intensity. Though it lasted only a few minutes, Hu Bin still felt a chill run down his spine. Such ruthless fighters. Damn it, did I actually face off against someone this ruthless last time? Glancing at his leg, still holding the steel plate, he suddenly felt not so bad anymore. The fight ended quickly, and to Hu Bin's surprise and alarm, it seemed that Master Hong wasn't the one gaining the upper hand. Afterward, Hong Xiuqi invited Fong Jian to fight in an underground boxing match on the high seas. Meanwhile, Fong Jian stepped up to the punching bag. That punch. Hu Bin didn't see that punch clearly due to the camera angle. But he witnessed the sandbag bursting apart, sending grit flying everywhere. His face gradually paled. Inside a modest rental apartment, the tall, dark-skinned man was eating, his arm dangling awkwardly across his chest. Suddenly, someone pushed open the door. The tall, dark-skinned man immediately stood up. His injury was to his arm, not his leg. Though movement was still somewhat difficult, he was in far better shape than Hu Bin. Senior brother, you're back, the tall, dark-skinned man said, his eyes gleaming. How's that kid? Hong Xiuqi stared at him coldly. The tall, dark-skinned man froze, his voice dropping involuntarily. He still feared this senior brother deeply, for since childhood, he couldn't count how many times he'd been beaten by him. Moreover, his senior brother's blows were heavy, each one leaving an indelible mark on his body and soul. So whenever Hong Xiuqi's expression darkened, he immediately fell silent, not daring to utter another word. Hong Xiuqi snapped coldly, you bastards still have the nerve to ask me what's wrong? Who the hell did you go and provoke? The tall, dark-skinned man paused, then stammered, Senior brother, I heard it was some rich kid's lackey. Bull. What lackey? Hong Xiuqi roared. Someone like that couldn't possibly be anyone's lackey. The tall, dark-skinned man gaped, utterly bewildered by his senior brother's sudden fury. Hong Xiuqi said coldly, as soon as your injuries heal a bit, you're coming back with me. Huh? Back? Why? Because you have no sense of judgment, Hong Xiuqi fumed. Can't you open your eyes and see who you can provoke and who you can't? If I leave you here to keep making enemies, you won't even know how you died. The tall, dark-skinned man sucked in a sharp breath. Senior brother, it can't be that serious, can it? Hong Xiuqi spoke slowly. Do you know what I saw today? Ah, what? Hidden power, Hong Xiuqi said, enunciating each word deliberately. I saw hidden power. Impossible, the tall, dark-skinned man exclaimed. Master said it's impossible in modern society. Besides, even after all these years of fighting in underground matches, you haven't mastered hidden force. How could he possibly have it? Beyond his shock, Hong Xiuqi was also puzzled. He fought in underground matches, certainly for money. But hadn't he also sought to transcend the realm of overt force? Yet after 2 years of underground fighting, he hadn't even come close to grasping the essence of hidden force. He had always believed that so-called hidden power was nothing but a legend. But today he learned that hidden power truly existed in this world. That punch that shattered the sandbag, if it wasn't dark energy, he'd gladly kick his own head like a soccer ball. Waving his hand dismissively, Hong Xiuqi said, enough talk. Just focus on healing quickly. Once you're better, we're leaving immediately. I have no desire to cross paths with him again. The mere memory of that sandbag shattering sent a chill coursing through Hong Xiuqi, his hair standing on end. Such a vicious man, the farther away from him, the better. Yet, a sudden, chilling thought surged through Hong Xiuqi's mind. What if he faced such a brutal opponent in an underground boxing match? Could I then grasp the essence of dark force? What terrified Hong Xiuqi was that this thought lingered in his mind, not fading but growing stronger by the moment. Even though he knew fighting him would almost certainly mean certain death. Yet his heart refused to calm down, pounding wildly. Chapter 84, Father's Power. That night, after Fang Jian fell asleep, his father immediately shook him awake. Son, today I found you some real masters, his father announced, sounding like he was showing off a treasure. Fang Jian pressed his hands to his forehead, looking thoroughly groggy. There was nothing he could do about it. Though he knew this was a dream, whether asleep or awake, it wouldn't cause any harm to his body. Otherwise, a single night equaling a year would have shattered his spirit long ago. But everyone has that grouchy mood right after waking up. He just dared not vent it on his old man. Dad, who did you hire? Fang Jian asked, sounding somewhat unimpressed. After witnessing Master Li's martial arts prowess, Brother Wu's special forces skills, Mr. Beethoven's musical genius, and Mr. Maradona's football mastery. No matter what big shot showed up next, Fang Jian wouldn't be impressed. His father lifted his head proudly. Listen carefully. There are 2 masters of Chinese painting. One is the venerable Qi Baishi, and the other is. He paused, his eyes and brows brimming with smug satisfaction. Watching his father draw out the sentence like this, Fang Jian felt a bit puzzled. When did the old man learn to show off like this? Dad, just say it. Who is it? He, Tang Yin, Tang Bohu. The last trace of drowsiness vanished instantly from Fang Jian's eyes. Tang Yin? The name itself might be unfamiliar to many, but mention Tang Bohu, and he becomes legendary. Tang Bohu, a scholar of the Jiajing era in the Ming dynasty, was known by numerous pseudonyms: Six-like Hermit, Peach Blossom Hermitage Master, Tang of Lu State, and Escaping Zen Immortal Official. He was a figure of immense renown in China's history. Though he never held political office, he was celebrated among the common people as a renowned scholar gentleman of unparalleled charm and talent. Father cleared his throat and said, Son, Tang Yin's landscape paintings synthesize the northern and southern schools. His brushwork is delicate and refined, his compositions sparse and open, his style elegant and graceful. His figure paintings follow Tang dynasty traditions, featuring vibrant yet refined colors, graceful postures, and precise forms. He also excelled in freehand figure painting, where his brushstrokes were concise yet expressive, brimming with charm. His flower and bird paintings excelled in freehand ink, exuding a carefree and elegant charm. His calligraphy was bold, rugged, and handsome, drawing inspiration from Zhao Mengfu. He recited this like a rote memorization, pausing briefly before adding, in painting, he was counted among the 4 masters of the Wu school alongside Qinzhou, Wen Zhang Ming, and Xiaoying, collectively known as the 4 masters of the Ming dynasty. Oh, right, in poetry and prose, he was counted among the 4 literary masters of Wu, alongside Zhu Yunming, Wen Zhangming, and Su Zhenqing. Truly a remarkable master. Fang Jian silently stared at his father. With every sentence, his father would instinctively lift his head to glance upward. Fang Jian followed his gaze upward, but saw nothing. He knew there must be some information here visible only to those from the underworld. Fang Jian didn't press the matter. It was better that he couldn't see it. If he could see it, he dared not think it through. With a chuckle, Fang Jian asked, Dad, are you reading a book? His father paused, then gave an awkward chuckle. Well, actually, it wasn't me who said it. Old Master Qi Baishi told me. Fang Jian nodded silently. That made sense. Qi Baishi was a renowned painter, and a modern one at that. Fang Jian hadn't seen his paintings, but he knew they were incredibly valuable. As an artist himself, he naturally understood his peers. Oh, and besides Chinese painters, I found 2 Western artists for you too. Dad slapped his forehead and said, these 2 are pretty amazing, lots of people admire them. Oh? Who? Pablo Picasso and Van Gogh. Fang Jian's jaw dropped, his mind reeling with astonishment. Dad really was a treasure trove of a father. He never failed to deliver huge surprises. These 4 artists. Well, having mastered the techniques of these 4 masters, Fang Jian could confidently declare that in the realm of painting, he would no longer fear anyone. His father smiled warmly. Son, which one would you like to study with today? Fang Jian composed himself, thought for a moment, and replied, I'd like to study under Master Li. Huh? Dad looked utterly puzzled. Why? Because I think it's better to have stronger self-defense capabilities. Though Dad didn't quite understand, he didn't go against his son's wishes and waved toward the circle's edge. Master Li soon entered. After seeing his father off, Master Li looked at Fang Jian with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Young Master Fang, after our last parting, I truly believed we'd never meet again. Why? Fang Jian was utterly perplexed. Master Li smiled. Though I've come to the underworld, I can't see what happens in the mortal realm. But new souls arrive here every day, so I've gained some understanding of the mortal world as it is now. Fang Jian nodded. Indeed, with deaths occurring daily, the more the population of the mortal realm swelled, the more souls would fill the realm of the dead. I know that in the mortal world today, hardly anyone practices martial arts anymore. This peaceful, prosperous life, it's truly enviable, Master Li sighed. Alas, in our time, that was nothing but a pipe dream. Fang Jian offered encouragement, Master Li, social stability is a blessing. I imagine your descendants would appreciate the world of the living today. That's true, Master Li laughed heartily. But such an environment isn't exactly conducive for martial artists. Fang Jian finally understood. Master Li, that's why you concluded I couldn't cultivate hidden strength. Indeed, Master Li nodded. Though I must admit, I underestimated young Master Fang. Not only did you cultivate it, but you achieved it in such a short time. Fang Jian smiled faintly. His mastery of hidden force had been achieved through a bit of a shortcut. Master Li, what comes after hidden force? Fang Jian asked eagerly. Is it transformed force? How did you know that? Fang Jian beamed with delight. Anyone who had read the book Dragon and Snake would surely know. Truthfully, concepts like external force, internal force, and transformative force were originally confined to martial arts circles. Non-practitioners generally paid them no mind and rarely encountered or understood them. But then JJ wrote Dragon and Snake, and suddenly a whole new audience discovered these concepts, spreading them far and wide across the internet. Master Li, please teach me. Very well. Since you've manifested hidden force, you've passed this stage. I won't withhold anything. Master Li nodded. Same as always, truth comes from combat. Come on. Fang Jian nodded firmly, focused his mind, and threw a punch. After traversing the red path, Fang Jian's strength had surged dramatically. This growth wasn't in his physical prowess, but in his spirit. In this realm where yin and yang converged, it became even more pronounced. His fist shot out like the wind, his movements agile and fluid, unleashing power far greater than before. Master Li calmly met the challenge, for all of Fang Jian's martial arts skills had been taught by him. Yet, it was not uncommon for the pupil to surpass the master. When Fang Jian unleashed his hidden force, Master Li fought him with renewed caution. He no longer fought with the same casual disregard as before. After a brief exchange, Fang Jian realized that despite his own significant improvement, he still felt constrained and unable to fully unleash his abilities in front of Master Li. It felt as though every move he made was under the other's control. On the surface, he was the one throwing punches, yet unbeknownst to him, his opponent had already woven an inescapable net around him. He felt like an insect trapped in a spider's web. No matter how much he struggled, the sensation only grew tighter. It dawned on him just how vast the gap between himself and Master Li truly was. Yet, upon confronting this reality, Fang Jian not only refused to be disheartened but found his fighting spirit ignited anew. Every punch he threw, every kick he delivered, radiated overwhelming momentum. His fighting prowess seemed to be quietly improving with every passing moment. Chapter 85, The Unmatched Fist of Li Shuwen, The Divine Spear. Master Li continuously parried with his hands, refraining from launching a full-on assault. In his lifetime, he had taught many disciples. Therefore, he understood one thing profoundly. Martial arts training cultivates not just the body, but also that indomitable spirit. That spirit of striving for victory, that unyielding breath. This spirit is crucial, the very foundation of one's continuous progress. If this spirit falters, it is highly likely that the person will never recover, unable to make any further progress. This principle applies not only to martial arts but to most endeavors in this world. Many display extraordinary talent in a particular field from a young age. Competing against peers, they consistently dominate, never tasting defeat. However, once they enter the adult world and stand on the same starting line as those much older than them, they taste the bitterness of defeat. If they can overcome this setback, they will undoubtedly achieve greater success. But if they lose confidence from that point on, they will stagnate or even abandon their careers. This holds especially true in martial arts training. Many people win every battle, their confidence growing stronger with each victory. They progress from the visible force stage to its peak, then to the hidden force stage, and finally to the transformative force stage. They advance triumphantly, overcoming every challenge. But if they suffer defeat along the way, it's highly likely they'll lose all confidence, their condition will deteriorate day by day, and they'll eventually fade into obscurity. Master Li was concerned that young Master Fong, raised in an era of material abundance and peace, couldn't handle setbacks. Though he has now manifested hidden power, if he were to suffer defeat, his confidence would be shattered, and he would cease to progress further. Yet, after sparring with Fong Jian for a moment, he suddenly realized he had perhaps overthought the situation. Fong Jian was already at a complete disadvantage, every move and technique being utterly countered. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break free from this situation. Most people in such a situation would surely feel discouraged, which would affect their boxing. But Fong Jian only grew more determined as the fight progressed. Wasn't Fong Jian aware of this? No. Being in the thick of it, he surely understood it more profoundly than anyone else. Yet, he possessed an indomitable spirit. Master Li found it utterly perplexing. In all his previous teachings to Fong Jian, he had never sensed this kind of indomitable strength in the young man, this unshakable conviction that he could never be defeated. And now, finally, Master Li's heart stirred. There are many natural talents in martial arts, but what truly propels one to the pinnacle was never about innate talent, but that unyielding spirit that refuses to admit defeat. Master Li's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He moved with increasing caution, as if he had discovered a precious gem. Perhaps I truly have the chance to teach him for 10 days, to make him a martial arts master who can stand shoulder to shoulder with me. Such an achievement is truly rare and hard to come by for any martial artist. Disciples yearn for a good master, but is it not the same for masters? Fong Jian's spirit grew ever more intense. The more constraints surrounded him, the heavier the pressure on his shoulders, the more resilient he became. His ability to unleash hidden power stemmed from his path along the Crimson Road. The hardships endured by the predecessors on that path were far beyond what modern practitioners could imagine. Without food, water, or strength, they had to traverse mountains and valleys while constantly facing encirclement from all sides. A normal army would have collapsed long ago. Yet this unprecedented army grew stronger with every battle, forging miracles from countless impossibilities. They not only broke through the encirclement but underwent a profound transformation, forging themselves into a truly invincible force. Now, the pressure bearing down on Fong Jian seems to echo that same spirit. The overwhelming force emanating from Master Li felt as though it could crush him at any moment. Yet Fong Jian persevered, growing stronger with every battle, becoming mightier with each strike. His spirit never retreated, proving 10,000 times more resilient than a cockroach. 365 days later, Master Li gazed deeply at Fong Jian and suddenly said, "Young Master Fong, though I am but a humble old man, I have still imparted my skills to you." Fong Jian paused, then quickly replied, "Master Li, everything I know about martial arts comes from you." Master Li nodded lightly. "Then, would you still be willing to call me master?" Fong Jian was overjoyed. He had long wished to formally apprentice under this man. But Master Li had always declined his requests. Though unsure why he suddenly made this request, Fong Jian immediately understood and respectfully knelt down to kowtow 3 times. Disciple greets master. Good. Master Li laughed heartily as he helped Fong Jian to his feet. Whether it was an illusion or not, Fong Jian sensed that Master Li's smile had grown more sincere. If his previous teachings had been driven by monetary transactions, now, it seemed Master Li was offering genuine sincerity. "Fong Jian, you're training well, but don't slack off." "Yes, master." Master Li nodded with satisfaction, glanced upward, and said regretfully, "Alas, time is up. Come back tomorrow, and I'll continue teaching you the method of transforming force." Fong Jian nodded firmly. Indeed, things were different after becoming a disciple. This was the first time his master had ever taken the initiative to teach him anything. Master Li turned to leave. A thought struck Fong Jian, and he called out, "Master, what is your full name?" Fong Jian had asked several times before, but Master Li always changed the subject. It seemed he felt ashamed to have Fong Jian as his disciple, so he had kept his identity hidden all along. But at this moment, he stood with his hands behind his back and declared, "Li Shuwen." Fong Jian's eyes flashed with excitement. The unrivaled fist of Fong, the divine spear of Li Shuwen. But Jiquan, the world's foremost spear, Li Shuwen. The next morning, when Fong Jian awoke from sleep, he felt refreshed and invigorated, his body brimming with energy. This was no illusion, but a surge of spiritual inspiration. Li Shuwen, the Master Li he had encountered, was indeed the renowned martial arts master Li Shuwen from the Republican era. A disciple of Zhang Jingxing, Li Shuwen lived a life of integrity and righteousness, fiercely opposing evil. With martial arts that reached the pinnacle of mastery, he subdued evil, repelled foreign threats, and spread martial glory, earning him fame both at home and abroad. Fong Jian didn't want to dwell on the tales and legends surrounding Li Shuwen. But one thing is certain, Li Shuwen did indeed kill an officer from that country whose people lived quite comfortably. Though it occurred during a fair contest, the act brought immense satisfaction and boosted morale. For this alone, he deserved admiration. To be able to study martial arts under such a master, Fang Jian was absolutely willing. Conversely, if Master Li were a traitor to his country, no matter how formidable his skills, Fang Jian would never consider becoming his disciple. Even if he had unwittingly become a disciple, he would have renounced his master the very next day. After waking up, Fang Jian stood in the horse stance for half an hour. His body did not remain perfectly still during the stance. Instead, his breath rose and fell, causing him to sway ever so slightly. Yet his center of gravity remained unwavering, never deviating by even the slightest degree. This was the true essence of the living horse stance. Then he jogged to the park, assumed his stance, and began his boxing routine. During the height of summer, the riverside park would be bustling with early morning exercisers. Damn it, if it weren't for the grandchildren needing care, the park would be packed with retired uncles and aunts killing time. But now the weather had turned cool. Especially by the riverside park, where the early morning chill kept visitors scarce. For Fang Jian, this was the perfect place to work out. His body moved swiftly, punching and kicking with genuine martial arts techniques that made a whooshing sound. After finishing his routine, his body was thoroughly warmed up. Suddenly, his phone rang. Fang Jian glanced at an unknown number. Just as he was about to hang up, an inexplicable impulse stirred within him, and he found himself answering the call. "Hello, Mr. Fang, it's Luan Wani." Fang Jian silently thanked his luck for answering. "Little Luan, hello. What's this about?" "Mr. Fang, thank you for helping me find that part-time job. I'd like to invite you over for dinner at my place. Would that be okay?" Fang Jian chuckled to himself. He now possessed a fearless heart. Not even ghosts could intimidate him. Seeing ghosts almost every day, how could he possibly be afraid? So they agreed to meet 3 days later, on Saturday evening. Chapter 86, Learning Painting from Qi Baisher. Luan Wani hung up the phone, her cheeks flushing slightly. She never imagined she'd be the one taking the initiative. But these past few days at home, her mother had nagged her constantly, urging her to bring someone home to meet the family soon. Though Luan Wani repeatedly denied that Fang Jian was her boyfriend, her mother persisted with the same attitude, even piquing her father's curiosity. He began to subtly probe about Fang Jian. When she heard that Fang Jian was actually an even more accomplished pianist than her, and that he had left Ningbo 2 months ago in search of inspiration, with no one able to contact him, Luan Wani noticed her father's curiosity intensifying. His inquiries grew more frequent. Later, even her youngest brother began secretly asking her when he could meet his future brother-in-law. Though her impulsive little brother covered his ears and screamed for a full minute, it still left her feeling both annoyed and hopeful. Last night, Chao Qingxin suddenly posted in the group chat. "Teacher Fang is back and has finished composing the piece. We'll be able to record it for everyone to enjoy soon." The news instantly caught her attention. A feeling she couldn't quite describe began to spread through her heart. After waiting another day with no word, Luan Wani finally couldn't hold back and made the call herself. She tucked her phone into her bag. Luan Wani thought proudly. "It wasn't that I missed you, but my family kept nagging me until I had no choice but to ask you to come over." With a date with a beauty, Fang Jian felt incredibly excited. He wasn't some naive teenager anymore. But the circumstances now were vastly different from before. Fang Jian felt that his past self had been living in vain. Still, showing up empty-handed felt a bit awkward. After pondering, Fang Jian returned home, ate a medicinal meal he'd cooked himself, then burned 100 million yuan before his father's portrait. He lay down on the bed and forced himself to take a nap. He'd never been one for naps. He tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. But persistence paid off. Perhaps after counting sheep until he grew numb, Fang Jian finally drifted into a hazy sleep. Then, just as he'd hoped, he saw his father. "Son, you've only been gone half a day. Why are you back already?" His father looked utterly bewildered. Fang Jian sighed and said, "Dad, there's no time to explain. Please bring over that Mr. Qi Baisher." His father's eyes darted around. "Is your mother-in-law giving you trouble?" Fang Jian rolled his eyes. When had his father become so sharp? "Dad, I'm going to their house for dinner in a couple of days. What if they put me to the test? Let's hurry up and learn everything we need to in these 2 days so we don't embarrass ourselves later." His father nodded emphatically. "Son, it's wise to prepare. But don't get too nervous. Remember when I first went to your mother's house?" Just as he was about to recount his glorious exploits, he saw his son's face filled with impatience. He couldn't help but sigh deeply, lamenting that raising a son meant a lifetime of worrying about him. Look at those who have daughters, such a comforting little cotton jacket. But what can you do? He's still my flesh and blood. The old man waved his hand through the air a few times, then beckoned. Outside the circle, an elderly man stepped forward. He sported a long beard and, though advanced in years, possessed an air of distinguished grace. "Young Master Fawn, this must be your son, huh? Ha ha, he certainly looks the part. Brother Qi, my son is quite dim-witted. When you teach him, if he disobeys, don't hold back, just discipline him," father declared indignantly. Fang Jian froze. Had his father lost his mind? Qi Baisher also froze, glancing at Fang Jian as the corners of his mouth twitched. "Brother, you think too highly of this old man. With your son's size, even if I wanted to discipline him, I'd be all heart and no strength, wouldn't I? Alright, brother, I'll leave it to you. Father gave a nod and turned to leave. As he departed, he casually opened the app. Every inch of time is precious. But he couldn't help but grumble inwardly. His son used to come once a day, each visit costing 365 million. Now he needs to come twice a day? That would be over 700 million a day. Even though his son had sent 500 billion in one go last time, spending like this would drain any fortune, no matter how vast. I'll have to discuss it with him later. We'll need to be a bit more frugal going forward. I wonder how easy it is to earn Joss paper in the mortal world. Is my son working too hard? Just moments ago he was angry with his son, but now he's already worrying about the kid again. He's my flesh and blood. What can you do? Young Fong, what might you wish to learn? Master Chi Baisher inquired gently. For some reason, after hearing Young Fong's words, he felt a pang of unease. This Young Fong, could he be a troublemaker? What if he refused to learn? Wouldn't that be a waste of Brother Fong's incredibly generous salary? 10 million yuan. I never made that much money in my entire life. Who would have thought that after death, I'd still be blessed with such fortune in the afterlife? At that moment, old Master Chi's expression grew solemn. To justify the 10 million, he must give it his all to ensure Young Fong masters his craft. Fong Jian pondered for a moment before saying, Mr. Chi, I'm not sure where to begin. How about we start with sketching? Sketching? Old Master Chi's expression turned slightly peculiar. He pondered for a moment before replying, very well. Though sketching may seem rudimentary, it can certainly serve as a foundational step in learning to paint. Mr. Chi reached out, snatching at the air a few times. Instantly, he produced 2 drawing boards along with some paper and brushes. Fong Jian had long since grown accustomed to such supernatural feats. Manipulating objects out of thin air was child's play. Fong Jian had even witnessed Brother Wu Jiangmo transform snow-capped mountains into forests and deserts into oceans with a single wave of his hand. This was because his father had activated the every inch of time is worth its weight in gold ability. Under this million yuan a day premium mode, the environment here could now be adjusted at will. Chi Baisher laid the paper on the easel and explained, Young Fong, sketching refers to all monochrome painting. It originated from Western training in form and structure. Fong Jian froze. Western? That didn't make sense. Master Chi Baisher was a renowned master of Chinese painting. He had looked up the old master's name on Baidu before returning this time. He knew the old master enjoyed immense prestige as a renowned master of traditional Chinese painting in modern history. His works radiated a strong rustic charm, embodying the simple consciousness of farmers and the innocent, romantic spirit of childhood. His paintings excelled in vibrant, lively colors, stark contrasts between ink and pigment, and a style characterized by robust, naive forms and brushwork. The extreme synthesis of meticulous and freehand techniques, along with compositions that found the extraordinary in the ordinary, formed Master Chi's unique artistic language and visual form. But he never knew that Master Chi was also skilled in Western painting techniques. Then again, is sketching really a Western technique? Fong Jian was truly clueless about painting. He wanted to ask about it now, but he really couldn't bring himself to do so. He could only patiently listen to the lecture. Sketching is essentially a drawing exercise used to learn artistic techniques, explore the principles of form, and cultivate professional habits. It typically refers to methods that leave marks on a flat surface, such as crayons, charcoal, pens, pencils, pastels, sepia, ink, and paper. Other forms include marks made on wet clay, ink-stained cloth strips, metal, stone tools, containers, or the surface of fabric. All these can be categorized as sketching. Master Chi Baisher's instruction was meticulous and earnest. Fong Jian thus followed closely behind him, receiving his guidance step by step. Chapter 87, Full of Energy. A full 3 months. Fong Jian spent 3 months drawing sketches here. He didn't just draw on paper under Master Chi Baisher's guidance, he experimented with every conceivable medium capable of leaving a mark. Fortunately, he was in this uniquely resourceful environment, otherwise, finding so many different materials would have been a challenge. Finally, one day, after examining Fong Jian's work, Master Chi gave a slight nod and remarked, not bad. You won't embarrass yourself. Fong Jian breathed a long sigh of relief. Master Chi continued, Young Fong, sketching is the foundation of all painting. Now that you've built a solid base, I can teach you traditional Chinese painting. He paused, then added, but traditional Chinese painting uses a brush. You'll have to start adapting all over again. As he uttered these words, his voice carried a hint of schadenfreude. Fong Jian hesitated before asking, Master Chi, are you saying sketching is a Western art form? Yes. Then how did you learn it? Fong Jian asked, utterly perplexed. Over the years I've met many Eastern colleagues and many Western colleagues. Through mutual exchange, we've all picked up a bit here and there. Mr. Chi said with a smile. It seemed like the most natural thing in the world. Fong Jian couldn't help but smile wryly to himself. So that was the reason. If only he'd known the difference between Western sketching and Chinese painting earlier, he wouldn't have studied this with him. Among the artists my father found were Van Gogh and Picasso. Wouldn't learning Western painting techniques from them be far more rewarding? Qi Baishi spread out a fresh sheet of paper and explained, Young Fong, our traditional painting tools and materials include brushes, ink, Chinese pigments, rice paper, silk, and more. Subjects can be categorized as figures, landscapes, or flowers and birds. Techniques can be divided into meticulous brushwork and freehand expression. Its spiritual core lies in the interplay of brush and ink. As he spoke, the old master lifted his ink-laden brush and set it upon the xian paper. Traditional painting is divided into three categories: figures, flowers and birds, and landscapes. While superficially classified by subject matter, they fundamentally express artistic concepts and philosophies. To truly master them requires a lifetime of dedication. Fong Jian dared not be negligent. He set aside all distracting thoughts and earnestly committed every word of the old master to memory. Truthfully, mastering any skill to its pinnacle demands immense time and effort. Devoting a lifetime to mastering a single discipline is no empty phrase. Had Fong Jian not encountered so many masters, nor found himself in this place where every moment was precious, he would never have mastered such a breadth of skills. In the days that followed, Fong Jian immersed himself completely in the study of painting. After 365 days, Master Qi Baishi departed with a heart full of satisfaction. Initially, he had worried that this young Fong might be a troublesome student. But after teaching him, he discovered that though the boy knew nothing, he was extremely earnest in his studies, respectful of his teachers, and diligent in his efforts. As for his talent in painting, well, let's not dwell on that. It's a sore subject. But at the very least, he was diligent and earnest. Even if he couldn't become a genius painter, he had more than enough potential to be a competent craftsman. Mr. Qi Baishi accepted that 10 million with a clear conscience. When Fong Jian came to, he glanced at the sky. It was still afternoon. He had only slept for 4 hours. He did the math: 4 hours of midday sleep could actually buy him a whole year? Compared to the nighttime rate, this ratio was far too high. It seems that in the realm between life and death, time is measured by the number of times one sleeps, not by the duration of sleep itself. Fong Jian breathed a sigh of relief. If that was the case, 3 days would be more than enough time for him to cycle through all 4 master painters. As he stretched lazily, Fong Jian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. It was that little minx, Wang Donglian. Wang Donglian, I'm eating at the music restaurant. Wanna join? Fong Jian considered it, then pretended not to see it. Moments later, his WeChat notification chimed again. Wang Donglian, Cindy, Dai, and Xiui are all here. We're waiting for you. Fong Jian, okay, I'll be right there. Inside the music restaurant, Wang Donglian held her phone, her smile stiff and forced. Her gaze fixed on the screen was fierce, almost as if she were staring at an enemy. It made one wonder if she might smash the phone to pieces at any moment. Donglian, what's wrong? Qi Yue nudged her. Hurry up and eat. The steak will get cold and be inedible. Wang Donglian replied indignantly, I'm full. Ha? Full? What did you even eat? Anger. Qi Yue stared blankly. What on earth was that? Elegant piano music filled the dining room. Luan Wani sat silently at the keys, her skill seemingly refined once more. Though she couldn't possibly receive the standing ovation Fong Jian had earned, her progress was undeniably improving. Chao Qingxin's gaze swept over Luan Wani and Wang Donglian's faces, tinged with a hint of worry. Yet she felt powerless to intervene. Both were dear friends. She couldn't possibly choose sides. By the time the steak had completely cooled, Fong Jian also entered the dining room. His gaze swept around the room, lingering just a moment longer on Luan Wani by the piano. His gaze, however, was clear and natural, devoid of any hint of lewdness or furtive glances, causing no offense to anyone. It was like casually glancing at an attractive girl on the street. A normal man taking a moment to look wouldn't provoke anger. Of course, if you were to sneak glances or stare like a lecherous hooligan, that would be an entirely different matter. Then, Fong Jian withdrew his gaze and strode purposefully toward Wang Donglian's table. His stride was steady and powerful, his posture straight as a spear, and he looked surprisingly comfortable and handsome. Wang Donglian had been quietly fuming, but the moment she saw Fong Jian, half her anger melted away. For some reason, just watching him walk made him seem so handsome. He must be a soldier, right? Probably. Soldiers walk the coolest. At the next table, 2 young girls whispered to each other, giggling happily. Wang Donglian paused, suddenly realizing that Fong Jian's gait truly did resemble that of a soldier. And there was nothing artificial about it. Every movement was effortless and natural, as if he'd been a soldier his entire life, that bearing deeply ingrained in his instincts and bones. No wonder she'd sensed something different about him since their meeting in Ruijin. But Wang Donglian, being too close to the situation, had never considered it. She had investigated Fong Jian's background and origins. She hadn't found any record of him ever serving in the military. In a daze, Fong Jian had already approached them and sat down. His eyes lit up at the sight of the empty steak plate on the table. Thank you, ladies, he said. Chao Qingxin and the others froze. Why thank us? Then they watched as Fong Jian pulled the steak toward him, grabbed his knife and fork, sliced it up in no time, and polished it off completely. Chao Qingxin opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. Shi Yue was about to speak when Wang Donglian tugged her arm and she fell silent. How's the taste? Wang Donglian asked with a smile. You came too late, it's cold now and not as good. Shall I order you another one? Thanks, I'll gladly take you up on that, Fang Jian said happily, swallowing the last bite of beef. Today he'd slept twice and gained 2 years' worth of learning. An extra serving would be a well-deserved treat. Wang Donglian waved down a waiter and ordered 3 portions of steak in one go. When she looked at Fang Jian again, she no longer found him repulsive. He walked with such grace half her anger melted away. And eating her steak, he devoured it so heartily. Wang Donglian's anger vanished completely. A sweet smile spread across her face and she suddenly felt happy. Chapter 88, Showing Off a Little. Luan Wani approached with a smile. She practiced piano for 2 hours every noon, but that didn't mean she had to play non-stop. Even the most formidable pianist needed rest. Seeing Fang Jian devouring meat at the dining table, a faint smile also played at the corners of Luan Wani's lips. Mr. Fang, you're here. Though they'd spoken on the phone that very morning, she deliberately acted as if she'd just learned of his arrival. It wasn't that she deliberately wanted to hide anything, she just felt a little embarrassed. Fang Jian nodded. Yes, I'm here. He smiled warmly. Little Luan, your piano playing has improved remarkably. Luan Wani's cheeks flushed slightly. After listening to your pieces, Teacher Fang, I feel like I've had a bit of an epiphany. That's why I've made some progress these past 2 months. Beside them, Wang Donglian raised her delicate eyebrows slightly and said, Teacher Fang, I've improved too. Next time, I'll play for you. Fang Jian smiled warmly. That's wonderful. It's great to see everyone improving. Though he spoke these words, inwardly he was silently grumbling. I'm talking to Xiao Wan, why are you butting in? Yet, the instant his gaze swept over her red lips, Fang Jian's heart still couldn't help but skip a beat. This woman was a seductress. The kind that makes you crave her relentlessly, burning with desire. Fortunately, he was a resolute young man of the new era. Once he set his sights on a goal, he charged forward undeterred by temptation. Otherwise, he might have fallen for her charms already. Though Fang Jian didn't want to admit it. Deep down he knew that without his good brother's warning, and the knowledge that the other guy's family was untouchable, he might not have been able to control his other brother. After all, his spirit and the other brother's pursuits were fundamentally different. Chao Qingxin smiled and said, Teacher Fang, I hear you gained a lot from this trip. Fang Jian chuckled, it was okay. Shi Yue pressed further, Mr. Fang, have you finished your compositions? I've conceived 2 pieces, but only finished 1 so far, Fang Jian shrugged. 1 is fine. Let us hear it first. Wang Donglian's eyes sparkled brightly, her earlier anger and fury long since vanished. Chao Qingxin silently glanced at her, feeling increasingly worried and helpless. This young lady was truly hooked. Fang Jian didn't refuse. He stood up and walked toward the piano. If a stranger had suddenly approached the piano in the restaurant, the waitstaff would certainly not have stood idly by. A piano was an expensive piece of equipment. If a guest accidentally damaged it, it would be a major incident. So, especially when a child approached the piano, they were always on edge. But when it was Fang Jian, the waitstaff's eyes were filled with anticipation. Fang Jian walked over to the piano. Just as he was about to sit down, he heard a burst of applause. He paused in surprise. Had he been gone for 2 months, and people still remembered him? He turned around and couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. It was Wang Donglian clapping wildly. After a moment of surprise, the other 3 girls also began clapping with charming smiles. Many guests looked slightly surprised. What was going on? Then, to Fang Jian's surprise, the applause grew significantly louder. As my gaze shifted, I caught glimpses of some vaguely familiar faces. Su Mao's business was thriving, he certainly had no shortage of repeat customers. Fang Jian gave a slight bow in their direction to express his gratitude, then took his seat. His hands lightly caressed the piano keys as Fang Jian's mind became still as water. The moment he sat before the piano, all his thoughts became pure. The piano. This is the only thing in my eyes. Beethoven's latest joyful piece began. Music as beautiful as flowing water over high mountains slowly filled the restaurant. Like a gentle stream, it quietly flowed into people's hearts. It continually cleansed their souls. In this moment, everyone who heard the music felt a sense of relaxation. As if, after a weary day, they suddenly felt lightened. This is the power of music. Soothing, elegant, and healing. Gradually, the restaurant fell silent. Just as Fang Jian's piano playing always drew attention in the past. This time was no exception. More and more people set down their cutlery and looked up. A sweet smile slowly spread across their faces. It was a kind of enjoyment, both for those listening to the music and for the one playing it. At that moment, they were all immersed in a state of tranquility. Finally, the piano piece came to an end. Yet no one spoke, as if afraid to shatter this rare, warm silence. Suddenly, a single clap rang out. Then, thunderous applause instantly filled the entire restaurant. Fang Jian rose, gave a slight bow to the crowd, and then walked back to his seat. At that moment, Fong Jian didn't notice that many people had already pulled out their phones. They weren't filming Fong Jian, but sending messages to different people. The mysterious pianist is here. The handsome guy is back. He played a new piece. Is he still there? I'll be right over. I'll be right there. Can he still play? Without realizing it, Fong Jian had already gained quite a reputation within certain circles. Returning to the table, Fong Jian immediately met 4 pairs of eyes filled with astonishment and admiration. It must be said that the compositions born from the inspiration of a true musical maestro held an undeniable, irresistible charm for these young women who were well versed in music. Indeed, held an irresistible charm. Teacher Fong, you're amazing, Shi Yue said, her eyes sparkling like little stars. Chao Qingxin shot her a glance, gave her a light tap, and teased, stop daydreaming, you're practically drooling. Oh, no way. You're so mean, Xing. Shi Yue couldn't hide the excitement on her face. Teacher Fong, is this your new piece? Wang Donglian's eyes sparkled brightly. Where's the sheet music? I'll register it immediately. And when will you record it? I need to send it to Robert, he'll be even more excited than I am. Fong Jian chuckled. Miss Wan, show a little restraint, will you? We're all musicians here, noble souls. Discussing this with me, don't you think it reeks a bit too much of the stench of money? The 4 girls couldn't help but burst into laughter. People from other seats glanced over, their expressions varied. Most felt admiration, but little envy. Of course, that was assuming Fong Jian hadn't demonstrated his talent. Then it would be a different story. The crowd present would likely curse inwardly, thinking these 4 girls were blind as bats. Or they might have wondered if this guy was just loaded, and that's why things were the way they were. People despise monetary transactions, though many secretly crave them and revel in them. But when it comes to artists, they're far more forgiving. Because it wasn't the stench of money, but artistic elevation. Xiao Cheng pondered for a moment before saying, Fong Jian, would you play a song for us at my wedding with Zhang Tao? Fong Jian smiled warmly. It would be my pleasure. That's not right, Shi Yue protested. We all call him Teacher Fong. Why are you calling him by his first name, Sister Qingxin? What's that about? Xiao Qingxin sighed helplessly. I wanted to call him Teacher Fong too, but my husband said if I did, he'd fight Fong Jian to the death. A faint smile touched her lips as she added, for the sake of my husband's life, I'll just have to call him by his first name. The 3 girls laughed together, clamoring about unfairness. Fong Jian cleared his throat. Alright, Teacher Fong really isn't appropriate. Just call me Brother Fong. The 3 girls exchanged glances and nodded eagerly. Brother Fong did sound much warmer than Teacher Fong. Chapter 89, The Rich Family's Daughter. The meal was thoroughly enjoyable. But later, a minor incident occurred. By the time Fong Jian began playing the piano, the dinner hour was drawing to a close. At this hour, though the restaurant remained open, it was unlikely to see many new customers. Yet, guests began trickling in afterward. They all had friends here. After sitting down and ordering, some asked if they could invite Fong Jian to play again. Su Mao personally came over to make the request. Fong Jian naturally did not refuse and went up to play another piece. This time, however, he didn't play Beethoven's new piece. Instead, he selected one from the 10 piano pieces he had previously recorded. For Luan Wani and the other 3, they had heard it countless times. Yet for those who had rushed over, it still held ample surprise. Because none of them had ever heard this particular piece before. As for Luan Wani and her 3 friends, though they had listened to it countless times over the past 2 months, hearing a live piano performance was vastly different from listening to an MP3 recording. Perhaps the live performance lacked the polished perfection of post-production, but it possessed an indescribable sense of immediacy. Thus, upon hearing it, they too experienced an unexpected delight. After dinner, Shi Yue was still chattering away, expressing her excitement. Chao Qingxin grabbed her arm and pulled her toward her bar. Fong Jian, Xiaoyi and I need to discuss something. Could you please take Yi and Donglian back? Fong Jian's lips curled in a slight sneer. Damn it, I can handle one, why are you dumping 2 on me? He offered a forced smile. Miss Chao, why not call me Brother Fong? Chao Qingxin covered her mouth and laughed. My husband said I can't call anyone brother otherwise he'll get upset. With that, she dragged a reluctant Chi Yue away. It wasn't that she couldn't tell Chi Yue was displeased. It was that she truly dared not leave her here any longer. Hadn't she seen one of her girlfriends already caught up in this mess, while the other was quietly showing signs of getting involved too? If Chi Yue, that scatterbrain, got involved too, she'd truly be at a loss for words. The 2 girls exchanged a glance before both turning their eyes toward Fong Jian. Fong Jian felt a chill run down his spine. He'd rather face off against his master or trek mountains and cross seas with Brother Wu than endure this awkwardness. Taking a deep breath, Fong Jian forced himself to sound calm. Ladies, my sister-in-law asked me to escort you home. Could you give me your address? Wang Donglian gave him a half smile, half sneer. So, you're willing to take me home today? Luan Wani turned to look at her, a hint of surprise in her eyes. Fong Jian shot her a glare and quickly added, my sister-in-law gave me specific instructions. I can't just leave you stranded on the street, can I? Wang Donglian snorted audibly, itching to retort, this lady couldn't care less. But after a moment's thought, she held her tongue. She was quite interested after all and gave an address. Bo Jingting. Fang Jian knew this place well and couldn't help but curse under his breath. Rich bastards. Fang Jian had just bought a house not long ago, so he still had some understanding of the real estate market in Yongcheng. In the suburbs or for older properties, prices started just over 20,000 yuan per square meter. But those with high unit prices had already reached the clouds in the sky. While they couldn't compare to the highest prices in those top-tier cities. For ordinary people, every square meter represents savings that would take years to accumulate. After all, beyond basic expenses like food and rent, life involves countless unspoken social obligations. Living paycheck to paycheck is the current reality for the vast majority of young people. Wanting to save 100,000. It's easy for the wealthy, but truly difficult for those without means. And that 100,000 yuan? It barely covers a single square meter in a high-end residence. Fang Jian is quite wealthy now. But even if he smashed through that entire wall of cash, he still couldn't afford a villa in Bojingting. This place was beyond even Zhang Tao's wildest dreams. So this was what a true heiress of a wealthy family looked like. Nodding, Fang Jian led them to the car and started the engine. Throughout the journey, both girls chose the back seat, whispering to each other as their bell-like laughter filled the cabin. Finally, Bo Jingting arrived. Fang Jian turned and said, Miss Wang, you're home. Wang Donglian's lips turned down slightly as she said, Brother Fang, Yi, come in for a bit. Before Luan Wani could respond, Fang Jian interjected, Miss Luan has a curfew. She must get home early, or she won't be able to leave again later. Pfft, how would you know that? Wang Donglian retorted, clearly annoyed. I was the one who drove Miss Luan home last time, Fang Jian said with a smile. What, you forgot? Luan Wani giggled without responding. Wang Donglian shot Fang Jian a glare before finally stepping out of the car. Watching the car speed away, she stomped her foot in frustration. You think I don't know where you live? It's clearly closer to Day's house, why didn't you drop her off first? This is infuriating. Originally, after hearing Fang Jian's new song, she had grown even fonder of this man. But now. I'm so full. Brother Fang, Lian likes you, Luan Wani suddenly said. Fang Jian shrugged indifferently, who she likes is her own business. But whether others accept her feelings is their own business too. Oh, but she's so perfect. Not as good as you, Fang Jian cut her off without hesitation. Anyone who'd been there knew it was a major no-no to discuss other girls with the one you were trying to pursue. Because such discussions inevitably lead to an unfavorable outcome. Girls' minds work in strange ways, best not to speculate recklessly. Sometimes, even when you're clearly complimenting them, their minds take a sharp turn and end up who knows where. So when you're with the girl you like, just focus on showering her with compliments. Never bring up other women, not even her favorite celebrities. Xiao Luan, what do your parents like? Fang Jian changed the subject. It's my first time visiting, so I want to make a good impression on them. Luan Wani's cheeks flushed slightly. What did he mean by first visit? It sounded a bit odd. But it really was his first visit. But why did it feel like this awkward son-in-law meeting his mother-in-law scenario? She bit her lip lightly and said, actually, my parents don't really have any particular preferences. If you insist on bringing a gift, whatever you choose absolutely mustn't be expensive. If it costs over 1,000 yuan, my dad definitely won't accept it. Fang Jian paused, suddenly understanding her meaning. Perhaps it was one of those rules in government agencies. Still, while gifts couldn't be accepted on the first visit, things might be different once they got to know each other better. Fang Good, do you know how to play Chinese chess? Luan Wani suddenly asked. Fang Jian chuckled. In the past, he would have been completely clueless. But now? Even against a grandmaster, he could probably win 1 out of 10 games. Of course, he'd still lose more often than not. But then again, we're talking about grandmasters. So he replied modestly, not bad. I learned it as a kid and played a few games. I rarely lost. Wow, Brother Fang, your skills are that good? Luan Wani exclaimed, a mix of surprise and delight. Yeah, I used to love watching old men play chess in the park when I was young. They were really good. Luan Wani seemed a bit disappointed. So, are you interested in painting? Of course I am. I've studied sketching in traditional Chinese painting and I know a bit about Western oil painting too. Luan Wani frowned slightly. Was all this true? She recalled the words she had spoken to Fang Jian when he had walked her home last time. A flicker of doubt surfaced in her mind. Could Brother Fang have said those things deliberately? Chapter 90, Tang Bohu, master of both calligraphy and painting. That evening, back at home. Zhang Tao suddenly texted her at that moment, asking if he wanted to hit the bars. Fang Jian cursed under his breath his sister-in-law had just made him drive those two home. Now Zhang Tao was inviting him to hit the bars? Was this guy messing with me, or what? He tossed his phone onto the bed and refused to look at it again. No matter how much Zhang Tao urged him, Fang Jian remained unmoved. He went downstairs and did a set of boxing moves, working up a sweat. After washing up upstairs, Fang Jian went to bed. After sleeping for several hours at noon, he now found himself wide awake. Fortunately, Fang Jian possessed great perseverance and simply lay still. After an unknown period, his eyes finally began to droop. That night, Fang Jian finally met the legendary playboy whose exploits had inspired countless tales. He had to admit that in this world, there truly were people who could make a living solely on their looks. Even though his face appeared to be in his 30s, and due to poor care, it bore a hint of weariness and confusion. It still radiated an exceptionally unique charm. Not only did it captivate young women and married ladies, but even Fang Jian felt a sense that this man must have a story. Damn, if you put this guy in a restaurant. Even if he couldn't play the piano, just sitting at the keys would captivate a crowd. Young Master Fang, Tang Yin greets you. Fang Jian exhaled a long breath and said, Master Tang, thank you for your trouble. This was his first time communicating with a genuine historical figure, yet he unexpectedly found no barriers in their exchange. First, since this was communication through spiritual intent, no misunderstandings could arise. Secondly, it must be the lure of money. After all, I was the employer and one who offered a price impossible to refuse. Even in the afterlife, young Master Tang would likely struggle to find another employer like me. Thus, even the most arrogant person would become courteous. The conversation with Tang Boho flowed effortlessly. After reviewing Fang Jian's foundational painting skills, he couldn't help but express his admiration. Young Master Fang, your painting technique is already exceptionally brilliant. Even I couldn't teach you much more, in terms of fundamentals. That's probably the right way to put it. Fang Jian nodded repeatedly. He didn't know how the ancients phrased it. But in modern terms, the term fundamentals was absolutely spot on. Master Tang, you're far too humble, Fang Jian replied with a smile. Your mastery of landscape painting and meticulous figure painting far surpasses mine. I have much to learn from you. Fang Jian had meticulously researched Tang Yin's background. This man, renowned throughout the land, excelled not only in landscape painting but also in meticulous figure painting, especially court ladies. His brushwork refined, meticulous, and gracefully ethereal. His surviving works include Riding a Mule Home with Thoughts of Home, Autumn Wind and Silk Fan, Li Ruerue, A Lifetime of Marriage, and Pine Sounds on the Mountain Path. Beyond painting, he was also a master calligrapher. All these were things Fang Jian needed to learn. Sure enough, Tang Yin gave a haughty smile. In truth, under the tutelage of the venerable Qi Baisher, Fang Jian's foundational skills were merely adequate at best. Yet, when measured against a master like Tang Bohu, his shortcomings became apparent. Even if Tang Bohu had been wildly unrestrained in life, after so many years since his death, he had surely experienced the full spectrum of the world's vicissitudes. Facing a client as formidable as old Master Fang, he naturally had to heap praise upon him first. Now, hearing the patron show such discernment, he felt genuinely pleased. Young Master Fang, I do have some insights into landscape and figure painting. Let us explore them together. Tang Bohu held nothing back this time. In truth, at the convergence of the mortal and spirit realms, once an agreement was reached, it was naturally safeguarded by mysterious forces beyond comprehension. Even if one wished to withhold knowledge, it was utterly impossible. Thus, Fang Jian spent half a year learning the ins and outs of Tang Yin's painting techniques. It wasn't that Fang Jian didn't want to learn everything. But art, sometimes, truly depends on innate talent. Some who study under masters do indeed become masters themselves, and in different styles. But for the vast majority, the highest they could hope to reach was mastery. There's no helping it that elusive 1% of innate talent can be utterly unreasonable. Half a year later, Fang Jian, who had long been plotting this, approached Tang Bohua to request learning his calligraphy. When it came to calligraphy alone, Tang Bohua's reputation naturally paled in comparison to masters like Wang Shiji and Yan Jinqing. Yet compared to Fang Jian, he was far superior. At the very least, as an introductory teacher, he was more than sufficient. Finally, after 365 days, Tang Bohua looked up at the sky and breathed a sigh of relief. His father stepped in from outside the circle. He smiled at Tang Bohu and asked, Young Master Tang, how is my son progressing? When facing the venerable Qi Baisher, father had never smiled so obsequiously. This clearly showed that Tang Bohua's fame far surpassed Qi Baisher's, and he was also far more legendary. Tang Bohua paused, then replied, he's doing well. Just fine. What do you mean so? Old dad pressed relentlessly. Fang Jian shot him a glance, suspecting dad was just making small talk to prolong his conversation with this legendary figure. Tang Bohu pondered for a moment before offering a wry smile. Truthfully, your son studies with remarkable diligence. Though his achievements fall just a tad short of what this humble one had anticipated. Fang Jian's face darkened slightly. Mr. Tang Bohu, with that tone of yours, is it really just a little bit? Could it be a billion little bits? Nevertheless, your son's skill has reached a level of mastery that rivals even the court painters. This assessment was actually quite generous. Fang Jian's heart stirred slightly. Young Master Tang, may I ask what your expectations are? Oh, Tang Bohua declared proudly, under my tutelage, one must at least reach the pinnacle of mastery and establish their own school. Fang Jian sucked in a sharp breath. That demand was ridiculously high. And this was Tang Bowu's standard for his own disciples. No wonder no one could truly inherit Tang Bowu's artistic legacy. Soon, Tang Bowu took his leave, his face beaming with satisfaction. Who knew how long that 10 million Joss paper notes would stay in his hands? Son, how many times will you come tomorrow? His father suddenly asked. Fang Jian paused, replying, once or twice, I suppose. Why? His father looked slightly embarrassed. Money in the mortal world is hard to come by, isn't it? Yeah, money really is hard to come by, Fang Jian admitted honestly. His father hesitated, then patted his son's shoulder. Hang in there. A sudden sensation of falling jolted Fang Jian awake and he sat bolt upright in bed. Still groggy, he recalled his father's final words. Huh? What did Dad mean by that? Was the money running out? No way. I sent him 50 billion all at once. Plus, every time I contacted him, it cost billions and billions. Though the rate at which he spent money. A bit fast, it shouldn't have drained Dad dry. Or did he get into something over in the afterlife? Could he be trying to support some secret project? Fang Jian let his mind wander for a moment before getting up and finding the Joss paper. These Joss papers were all brand new, freshly ordered by Fang Jian, worth $1 trillion. After some thought, he took out 100 billion and burned it before his father's portrait. Having learned from his previous experience, Fang Jian deliberately controlled the amount of Joss paper this time. Men, after all, tend to go bad when they have money. Even his own father couldn't be counted on for much. If he really did conjure up a younger brother or sister for himself. Fang Jian suddenly shuddered violently. A chill crept over him. He dared not imagine what would happen if one day he crossed over to that mysterious realm between life and death. A little child rushing over, clinging to his leg and calling out, "Big brother!" What kind of feeling would he have then? Shaking his head, Fang Jian dismissed this terrifying thought. He must restrict his father's access to money, absolutely no carelessness. Fang Jian rose and headed out once more to practice his boxing. Chapter 91, The Apprentice Trial. After finishing his routine, Fang Jian arrived at the bottom of the residential building. Brother Fang. Fang Jian looked up to see Liang Chao running toward him, a plastic bag in hand. Brother Fang, Brother Zhan asked me to bring you breakfast, Liang Chao said respectfully. Fang Jian glanced at it, understanding immediately. That guy Zhan Tao would do something like this? The sun hadn't risen in the west today. He smiled faintly and asked, Did Zhan Tao give me your address? No. Liang Chao shook his head hastily. I was drinking with Lei Zi last time. He got pretty drunk and just mentioned it in passing. Fang Jian chuckled, relax. Even if Zhan Tao did say it, there's nothing I can do about him. Liang Chao plastered on a smile. Brother Fang, I don't even know which building you live in. Could you let me come in and recognize the door? Seeing his humble demeanor, Fang Jian considered it for a moment before saying, follow me. As they entered the residential compound, Fang Jian observed discreetly. The guy hadn't lied, he genuinely didn't know the exact address. Upon entering the room, Liang Chao twitched his nostrils, looking somewhat puzzled. Fang Jian didn't hide anything. I prepared some medicinal broth for martial artists. Liang Chao's eyes lit up. Sanda, this thing, is essentially a combat technique specifically for the ring. While it possesses some practical combat value, at its core, it remains primarily a form of performance. Compared to genuine martial arts, it fell far short. And he knew Fang Jian possessed genuine martial prowess. Combined with the name of this medicinal dish, his heart instantly grew warm. Fang Jian asked slowly, how's your arm? It's fine, Liang Chao hurriedly replied. Master Fang, I wasn't injured to begin with. Enough, no need to tough it out, Master Fang smiled. If you truly wish to learn martial arts, pushing yourself like this is just courting trouble. Liang Chao promptly shut his mouth. Fang Jian opened the bag, revealing a breakfast of flatbread, fried dough sticks, and soy milk. He didn't hesitate, finishing it in a few bites before pulling out the medicinal meal and devouring it in large mouthfuls. Fang Jian ate with such relish that Liang Chao, who hadn't been hungry at all, suddenly felt pangs of hunger watching him. Suddenly, Liang Chao had this thought, if Master Fang were to start a foodie livestream, he'd definitely become a huge hit. Soon, Fang Jian finished eating. He smiled and said, so, you want to learn real kung fu? Yes. Liang Chao exclaimed, his excitement palpable. Fang Jian pondered for a moment. Truthfully, Liang Chao had laid a solid foundation. Though his training leaned toward form-based techniques, it was still the result of years of discipline. Even after retiring, he hadn't indulged in gluttony but maintained a considerable training regimen. Disciples with such self-discipline were precisely the kind teachers cherished most. Moreover, his performance at Zhan Tao's boxing gym had been quite commendable. While he wasn't the ideal candidate for a top disciple, calling him merely adequate would be unfair. After pondering, Fang Jian said, alright, I'll start by teaching you a horse stance. Once you've mastered it, you can study it on your own. When I'm satisfied with your progress, I'll teach you something new. Yes, thank you, master. Liang Chao was overjoyed and was about to kneel. Before his knees could fully bend, however, a stool was thrust in front of him. Fang Jian smiled warmly. Want to join the school? It's not that easy. Damn it, I trained under my master for a full 3.5 years. 3.5 years without eating, drinking, or sleeping. Only then did the master finally accept me. How dare you think you can become my disciple with just one sentence? At that moment, Fang Jian began to understand why ancient masters were so cautious and demanding when selecting disciples. On the surface, it was to gauge the disciple's character and temperament. Damn it, it was really just a case of the ugly daughter-in-law becoming the matriarch. They just wanted to play the same games on their disciples that their own masters had played on them. Yet Liang Chao nodded repeatedly, saying, Master, whatever task you assign, this disciple will complete it. I won't disappoint you. Fang Jian rose to his feet. Observe more, listen more, practice more, speak less. Begin now. He instructed Liang Chao to assume a horse stance. This was the most fundamental stance, the very same one Li Shuwen had taught him. The horse stance appeared simple, yet it contained profound wisdom. Without proper guidance, you could practice it your entire life and still be a dead horse. It wouldn't yield any training benefits. Liang Chao had never practiced the horse stance during his Sanda training. This was his first time learning it, but the young man was full of energy. Listening to Fang Jian's guidance, he was completely focused, as if trying to imprint every word Fang Jian said onto his heart. After repeating the instructions twice, Fang Jian said, I've taught you the fundamentals. How far you progress depends on you. Go now. Yes. This time, Liang Chao didn't kneel. Instead, he bowed deeply to Fang Jian before leaving. Seeing his eager demeanor, Fang Jian knew the young man was undoubtedly rushing off to practice his horse stance. However, the horse stance was indeed the first test and a notoriously difficult one to pass. Many people thought, it's just a horse stance, I could do that too. But they didn't realize that if they tried it themselves, they wouldn't be able to do it. This discipline demanded unwavering persistence, a level of resolve utterly incompatible with today's modern culture of instant gratification. If Liang Chao couldn't even pass this first test, there would be no future for him. A notification sound suddenly rang out on WeChat. Wang Donglian, brother Fang, come record now. Fang Jian, your music studio? Wang Donglian, yep. Fang Jian, alone? Wang Donglian, yep, shy.jpg. Fang Jian, I've got stuff to do, can't make it right now. Wang Donglian, I just asked A. She doesn't have class this afternoon. Today it's Xiaoyi who's going to play piano. The two of us are at Day's school, getting ready to go out for lunch. Fang Jian, which school? I'll be right over. Please give me a chance to treat you to lunch. Wang Donglian, treat me? Fang Jian, of course I'm inviting both of you. Wang Donglian paused briefly before sending an address. Fang Jian glanced at it and paused slightly. So it was this school. It was a prestigious private school with considerable renown in Ningbo City. Its tuition was exorbitant, far beyond what ordinary families could afford. Moreover, the ultimate goal for students at this school wasn't the national college entrance exam. Most either graduated high school or prepared to study abroad as early as their sophomore year. It was an international school. Rumor had it that foreign teachers made up about 1/3 of the faculty. English was used extensively within the school. Students who enrolled here from elementary school would, by the time they graduated from middle school, have no trouble communicating with foreigners in English even if other skills might be lacking. Luan Wani teaches music at this school. Fang Jian shook his head silently, thinking it was a waste of talent. He checked the time, it was about right to head over. He activated the navigation system. An hour later, Fang Jian arrived at the school's main gate. Today wasn't Friday, not a school holiday. Yet when Fang Jian's car pulled up to the school entrance, he still spotted several luxury vehicles. Yeah, real luxury cars. The kind where one car could buy 5 or 6 Q5s. Even the other vehicles present were certainly no cheaper than a Q5. But Fang Jian paid them no mind. He parked his car, got out, and walked toward the gatekeeper. His straight back and powerful stride, like a blaze in winter, instantly drew the attention of everyone around him. A soldier's gait is truly distinctive. Though Fang Jian wasn't consciously marching in military step, but with a lifetime of martial arts training and a full year spent following Brother Wu. Even on the Red Road, Fang Jian never abandoned that gait. Thus, this gait had become deeply ingrained in his very being, flowing out naturally. The moment he stepped outside, the security guard abruptly stood at attention and rendered a military salute to Fang Jian. The movement was so impeccably precise it momentarily startled Fang Jian. Chapter 92, The Second Brother Reincarnated? Instinctively, he raised his hand to return the salute. Only after completing this did Fang Jian remember he was here to inquire about the situation, not to meet a comrade. Brother Fang. Before Fang Jian could exchange words with the security guard, two figures emerged from inside. It was Wang Donglian and Luan Wani. Luan Wani wore a smile while Wang Donglian immediately called out. Fang Jian gave a slight smile, nodded to the security guard, and said, "Brother, I came here looking for someone, but I don't need to anymore. Next time we get a chance, let's grab a drink together." The security guard smiled back and said, "Sure thing, old squad leader." From his mannerisms, Fang Jian could tell he was definitely a former soldier. Upon hearing this title, I became even more certain. The term Old Squad Leader is actually a nickname used among discharged soldiers. It served to build rapport and convey closeness. Though Fang Jian had never served himself, he had friends who had, so he knew this well. He pulled out his phone, opened WeChat, and said, "Add me." The security guard paused slightly but didn't refuse, adding him as a friend promptly and efficiently. Throughout this exchange, Wang Donglian and Luan Wani simply watched from the sidelines, exchanging knowing glances and quiet chuckles, showing not a hint of impatience. With a wave, the three left the guardhouse. Just as they reached the Q5, a white sedan sped up and pulled alongside them. "Ms. Luan." The window rolled down swiftly. Fang Jian glanced over. Oh, he recognized him. Guan Xianming, if memory served, he was currently pursuing Luan Wani. Fang Jian smiled faintly, stepping sideways to casually shield Luan Wani behind him. "Mr. Guan, we meet again." Guan Xuanming's expression darkened, but he forced a smile. "Mr. Feng, hello." He stepped out of the car, retrieved a bouquet of roses, and said, "Teacher Luan, these are for you." They were just air-shipped in from Holland. Luan Wani immediately interrupted him. "Thank you, Mr. Guan, but I don't accept gifts from others." With that, she took Wang Donglian's arm beside her, then turned sweetly to Fang Jian. "Let's go eat, brother Feng." "Sure." Fang Jian shrugged helplessly at Guan Xianming before climbing back into the car. As the car started moving, Fang Jian caught Guan Xuanming's face turning ashen in the rearview mirror. Then, he slammed the bouquet against the car. It seemed as if his fist had struck it too, producing a dull thud. Only Fang Jian, with his keen hearing and focused attention, might have caught the sound. With a faint smile, Fang Jian remarked, "That car of his must be pretty expensive." Wang Donglian chuckled, "A Maserati. About the same as yours." "Similar to mine?" Though Fang Jian wasn't in the car business and didn't know much about vehicles. But he knew at least that a Maserati cost significantly more than a Q5. At least a few 100,000 yuan more. Yet coming from Wang Donglian's mouth, it sounded like they were comparable. Fang Jian didn't think Wang Donglian was just giving him face. Judging by her tone and attitude, she genuinely seemed to believe it. Fang Jian thought for a moment and asked, "Little Wang, what kind of car do you drive?" "I have 3 cars. Which one are you asking about?" Fang Jian was taken aback. Did a girl really need that many cars? "Tell me about them." "One is the Ferrari my mom gave me when I got my license. Another is the Lamborghini my uncle gave me when I got into the Shanghai Conservatory of Music. And the third is the Phaeton my dad gave me. He said it's a good car, not flashy." Fang Jian felt a bit numb listening to her. Even if you weren't a car enthusiast, hearing those 3 brands would still make you feel a bit moved. Clearing his throat, Fang Jian asked, "How much did the Phaeton cost?" "Under $1 million, I think." "About the same as yours," Wang Donglian replied without hesitation. "All right." Fang Jian finally understood this young lady probably didn't have much grasp of how much money 1 million yuan actually was. In her eyes, any car under 1 million yuan was probably in the same league. But Fang Jian wasn't about to feel inferior over it. He changed the subject. "Xiao Luan, what do you feel like eating?" Luan Wani smiled and asked, "Lian, what do you want to eat?" "Hot pot," Wang Donglian answered without hesitation. Then she turned to ask, "Brother Feng, why did you only ask Dai and not me?" Fang Jian rolled his eyes. Who was the third wheel who should disappear? Didn't she really know? He chuckled, "Didn't Xiao Luan already ask for me?" That was her asking. I knew she would ask for me, so I didn't bother repeating myself. Sitting in the back seat, Wang Donglian glared at the shameless man through gritted teeth. If he weren't driving, she'd have an urge to lunge forward and bite him. Fang Jian stopped at a red light and pulled out his phone to browse. "Where's the most expensive hot pot in Yongchang?" Ask Baidu for anything, though it might not always give you the right answer, it's always worth checking. He glanced at the screen and found it. "Ladies, let's go to Zuishang." The Zuishang brand was Ningbo's most expensive hot pot, with a per-person price tag exceeding 1,000 yuan. In the past, Fang Jian wouldn't have given it a second glance. He couldn't afford it anyway. But now, it didn't matter. However, Wang Donglian frowned and said, "The ingredients at Zuishang aren't fresh enough, and the seasoning isn't done well either. Let's pick somewhere else." Fang Jian glared at her through the rearview mirror, though Wang Donglian probably didn't notice. "Sis, this is the best hot pot place I could find. Let's go here instead," Luan Wani suddenly texted. "This place is pretty good." Wang Donglian peered at Luan Wani's phone, her eyes darting around before she smiled. "Right, this place isn't crowded and uses quality ingredients. Let's go there." Fang Jian glanced at the address on his phone. Never heard of it, but with navigation, he wasn't worried. As they drove, the area grew increasingly remote. The most upscale shops were on Ningbo's busiest commercial street, yet the location Luan Wani had given was in an urban rural fringe area. Fang Jian drove for a solid half hour. However, once he arrived, parked, and stepped inside. It was indeed elegant, first-class surroundings, and the waitstaff were incredibly enthusiastic, rivaling Haidilao. Moreover, there was no main dining hall, only private rooms. Fang Jian glanced at the sign and committed the location to memory. Menus were placed on the tables instead of the now popular QR code ordering system. Glancing at the prices, Fang Jian wasn't particularly concerned, but he suspected the dishes wouldn't be cheap. Beef tripe, shrimp paste, duck feet. Wang Donglian hesitated, glanced at Fang Jian, then circled a serving of beef and one of lamb. But then, glancing up again, her eyes swept over Fang Jian's particularly burly frame twice before she circled another order for a beef and lamb mix. Fang Jian was both annoyed and amused. "Miss Wang, are you trying to starve me to death?" "Ha? What? With this measly amount of meat, who do you plan to feed?" Fang Jian snatched the menu and swiftly selected over a dozen items. Among them were a king crab and a hollow spine grouper. Wang Donglian blinked her eyes and said, "Brother Fang, the portions here are huge. There are only 3 of us." Fang Jian scoffed dismissively. "Who do you think you're looking down on?" Wang Donglian thought about it. True stomachs used to devour 2 or 3 steaks at Western restaurants at once might find this order insufficient. After placing the order, the hot pot arrived swiftly. Wang Donglian took a deep breath, playfully teased Luan Wani for a moment, then began eating. Just as Wang Donglian had said, the ingredients here were indeed exceptionally fresh and delicious. The king crab, in particular, was plump and succulent, brimming with rich, sweet meat. By the halfway point, both Wang Donglian and Luan Wani were full, unable to eat another bite. Then they watched as Fang Jian devoured the entire table of dishes like a whirlwind. After finishing, he patted his belly, glanced at the menu, and still felt a lingering sense of unsatisfied craving. The 2 girls exchanged glances, both slightly astonished. Was this the reincarnation of the second brother? Chapter 93, Wishes When Broke. It wasn't the first time they'd eaten together. But before, there had always been a large group. After finishing their portions, most people felt awkward about asking for seconds. So it wasn't until today that they truly witnessed Fang Jian's appetite. Wang Donglian's gaze lingered on Fang Jian's stomach. It wasn't that she was heartbroken over the money, she was simply consumed by the thought of where all those things had gone. This stomach didn't look like it could hold that much. Could it be that there was a dimensional hole inside capable of pulverizing everything? Fang Jian beckoned the waiter over to settle the bill. The waiter smiled and said, "Sir, our restaurant has a post-meal long jump activity. Would you like to participate?" "What kind of long jump?" "It's a standing long jump. The farther you jump, the bigger the discount." The waiter chuckled, "If you can jump 3.5 meters, your entire bill is waived." "Oh, is that so?" Wang Donglian and Luan Wani both lifted their heads simultaneously, their eyes sparkling with amusement. "Brother Fang, go give it a shot." Wang Donglian grinned like a fox that had just stolen a chicken. Though Luan Wani remained silent, her expressive eyes fixed on Fang Jian, their eager anticipation plain for all to see. Fang Jian waved his hand dismissively. He hadn't intended to participate. This small amount of money wasn't worth the physical effort. But seeing the 2 of them so excited, he instantly changed his mind. Neither of them cared about the cost of a meal. But if it could win a smile from the beauties, Fang Jian wouldn't hesitate. "Alright, where's the long jump after dinner?" "Let us there." The waiter turned slightly and gestured with his finger. Luan Wani and the other girl exchanged a smile, then linked arms and followed along. In truth, such activities had existed long ago. But this was the first time Fang Jian had personally encountered one. Soon, they arrived at a corner of the restaurant. This was a children's play area, where several kids were happily playing under the guidance of a server. Surprisingly, the long jump area wasn't paved with tiles but thoughtfully covered with a layer of carpet. This not only allowed people to jump with peace of mind but also reduced the risk of injury. The owner really had a thoughtful touch. The long jump area was marked with 5 lines, starting from the lowest 10% discount all the way up to the highest free meal. Naturally, Fang Jian's eyes immediately darted toward the free jump zone. 3.5 meters, the distance looked so far away. Wang Donglian whispered beside him, "Brother Fang, give it your best shot and aim for an 80% discount." Luan Wani nodded repeatedly. They had heard from Zhang Tao that Fang Jian actually practiced boxing. Though none of them understood how someone who practiced boxing could compose such beautiful music. But since he practiced boxing, his physique must be excellent. An 80% discount should be worth a shot, right? Fang Jian chuckled wryly. "Ladies, you really underestimate me, don't you?" Wang Donglian paused, then asked, "Brother Fang, which one do you plan to challenge?" Fang Jian declared proudly, "If I don't dance, that's fine. But if I do, it'll be at the complimentary level." Both girls couldn't help but burst into laughter. They had seen the 3.5 meter gap clearly. Was that even a distance a human could jump? Wang Donglian's eyes darted around before she suddenly asked, "Waiter, how long has this event been running? What's the farthest anyone's jumped?" "It's been running for half a month." "The farthest jump was 3.1 meters, the server replied after a moment's thought. "He got a 50% discount. I heard he's a long jumper from the city." "Wow." Wang Donglian turned to Fang Gu. "Did you hear that? Aim for 3 meters, you can get half off." Fang Yi chuckled softly, said nothing more, and stepped up to the takeoff line. He crouched slightly, swinging his arms back and forth. As he crouched low, his body naturally entered a state of flow. His center of gravity shifted subtly with each swing of his arms. Hidden power, when cultivated to its peak, could be unleashed not only through the fists but also from the feet. But Fang Jian, of course, had not yet reached that level. Even so, his mastery of peak external force had honed his physical prowess to a level that rivaled any elite athlete. Lowering his body, Fang Jian suddenly launched himself forward. So high! So fast! That was the first reaction of everyone nearby who witnessed it. Not far away, a 7 or 8-year-old child suddenly shouted, "Superman!" But it wasn't just children there. Several concerned parents also watched with smiles. They had naturally noticed this place long ago. They hadn't paid much attention before, but when Fang Jian made that leap, they realized something was unusual. This leap seemed truly extraordinary. Then, Fang Jian's body glided through the air for a distance before finally landing. The waitress's eyes widened as she suddenly called out, "Front desk! Front desk!" A guest just jumped out of a free meal. Her voice was filled with excitement. Clearly, this was the first time she'd witnessed such a thing. Soon, staff from the front desk arrived. After verifying the situation, they promptly waived the bill without hesitation. The manager even proactively added Fang Jian on WeChat, inviting him to return. It must be said that witnessing business handled to this level was truly eye-opening for Fang Jian. After finishing their meal, the three walked out of the restaurant. Wang Donglian and Luan Wani exchanged a knowing smile, then suddenly burst into uncontrollable laughter without warning. Fang Jian froze, looking at them suspiciously, feeling they were hiding something from him. Wang Donglian suddenly said, Should we treat ourselves?" Luan Wani nodded, her face flushed. Wang Donglian casually hooked her arm through his and said, "Brother Fang, let's go." "Where to?" "Shopping, of course." Wang Donglian beamed with unusual delight. Fang Jian calmly withdrew his arm and said, "Miss Wang, haven't you heard that men and women shouldn't touch each other?" Wang Donglian huffed in displeasure, her red lips pouting slightly in an undeniably tempting way. Fang Jian immediately averted his gaze. Then he silently repeated to himself, "I'm the victim, I'm the victim, I'm the victim." Repeating it 3 times for emphasis, Fang Jian instantly felt his temper calm. Damn it, but why did he still feel a bit like a jerk? Under Wang Donglian's guidance, they arrived at Yongqing's largest and most expensive shopping mall. The two girls ran ahead hand in hand, occasionally tugging at Fang Jian as they walked together. Wang Donglian herself was a young, beautiful girl with an amazing figure. Only Luan Wani's looks surpassed hers. The two of them together were undoubtedly an eye-catching sight. As they strolled through the mall, they drew countless glances. Then they noticed Fang Jian trailing behind them. Ah, what a waste of beauty. A faint sadness washed over them both. Why wasn't I the dung? Soon, they arrived at a men's designer clothing store. Wang Donglian browsed inside and picked out an outfit for Fang Jian. Fang Jian thought for a moment and didn't refuse. When he emerged in the new outfit, both girls offered approving comments. Truthfully, this was also because Fang Jian had trained in martial arts, building a well-toned physique that made him look like a clothes hanger. Moreover, his study of music, painting, calligraphy, and other arts. Though it wasn't always apparent, a subtle, almost intangible aura had gradually begun to emerge. Of course, the most crucial factor was that Fang Jian always maintained an upright military posture. Dressed in fresh attire, he naturally radiated an even more vibrant and spirited presence. Fang Jian clearly saw the flicker of surprise in Luan Wani's eyes. It seemed Wang Donglian truly had excellent taste. However, when Fang Jian went to pay the bill, he was informed. The young lady had already signed the bill. Paid the bill? Could you even charge it at a place like this? Frowning as he looked at Wang Donglian, who was smiling happily and seemed a bit silly, Fang Jian felt grateful yet couldn't help but feel a bit emotional. Back when he was broke, he'd always wanted to hook up with a rich woman but could never find one. Now that he had money, could it be that his dream of living off someone else was finally within reach? Chapter 94, The Truly Wealthy. This shopping trip saw all three of them buying some clothes. But what left Fang Jian speechless was that he never once got to pay the bill. Because Wang Donglian led them into nothing but high-end brand stores. What astonished Fang Jian even more was that whenever Wang Donglian entered, she was personally greeted by the store manager. That's right, not the sales assistants. It was the store manager who personally stepped forward. Even if the store manager wasn't present at the time, they would rush back as quickly as possible. After each purchase, when Fang Jian tried to pay, the store manager would look at Wang Donglian with a deferential expression. Then, Wang Donglian would casually sign her name. It was as if she were signing after dining at her own restaurant. If it were just one restaurant, that might be understandable. But the fact that this happened with every brand both familiar and unfamiliar to Fang Jian was truly astonishing. Moreover, aside from the clothes Fang Jian carried himself, neither the items Wang Donglian bought for herself nor those for Luan Wani were ever brought up. However, Fang Jian happened to overhear a remark. "Rest assured, Miss Wang, I'll personally deliver it to your residence." Yikes! Only then did Fang Jian realize that true wealth wasn't about suddenly having 100 million in your hands. True wealth lies in being recognized by every top-tier luxury brand, having them beg you to sign contracts, and having them practically deliver their goods to your doorstep. Wang Donglian came here needing no money at all, just her face was enough. By comparison, the money he held in his hands though enough for ordinary people to dream of earning in several lifetimes. But compared to the woman before him, it was still a world apart. He glanced at Luan Wani, who stood nearby with a perpetually charming smile. Fang Jian felt a surge of curiosity. From their few conversations, he understood this young woman was no materialistic girl. Perhaps it had something to do with her family background. But one only needed to hear Luan Wani play the piano to know. She possessed an innate pride deep within her soul. How could she so readily accept a gift from her best friend? After browsing around, they returned to the car. Wang Donglian exclaimed with satisfaction. How much did we spend today? Luan Wani suddenly asked. Fang Jian raised an eyebrow. He hadn't misjudged her after all. About over 30,000 yuan, Wang Donglian said without a care. It won't exceed 50,000. Fang Jian shot her a look and said, Miss Wang, your range is way too wide. Over 100,000? Her math must have been taught by the gym teacher. Wang Donglian retorted indignantly, the total price tag is probably around 500,000, but they'll definitely give me a discount when they deliver it to my house. I just don't know how much the discount will be, so how could I possibly be sure? Fang Jian sucked in a sharp breath. Over 100,000 in one go? Aren't some brands supposed to never discount? Fang Jian thought for a moment and decided not to press further. Damn it, never again would he be taken advantage of by those top brands. Before, it was because I couldn't afford it, my heart was willing, but my wallet wasn't. Now, I genuinely couldn't care less. When you have confidence, you don't need brands to validate you. Luan Wani pondered for a moment and said, then let's settle on 330,000. That should be about right. Yeah, that's about right. Luan Wani looked up and said, Brother Fang, thank you. Wang Donglian also said, Brother Fang, thank you. Fang Jian was completely baffled. What? The two girls burst into laughter. Thank you, Brother Fang, for buying so many clothes for all four of us. Thank you. Fang Jian froze, finally realizing that the clothes Wang Donglian had bought were actually for all four of them. But why thank him when he hadn't paid for anything? His thoughts raced. Hot pot? Long jump? Oh my, Brother Fang, you're so clever. Wang Donglian exclaimed in surprise. Did you hear about it? Fang Jian shook his head slightly. No, I was waiting for you to tell me. Alright, Wang Donglian laughed. Actually, that hot pot restaurant is owned by my cousin. A month ago, we made a bet, if someone could jump over the free meal line, he'd give me 1,000,000 yuan. If no one could, I'd put in a good word for him. A peculiar smile suddenly spread across her face. Today I was just testing it out. I never expected you'd actually jump over it and win me 1,000,000. So we split the winnings 33,000 each. Luan Wani chuckled, but Brother Fang, your 33,000 has already been spent. Fang Jian's heart stirred slightly. 330,000 yuan wasn't a huge sum to him now. He wouldn't have cared. But Wang Donglian actually dared to wager against someone. 1,000,000 yuan for a single compliment? This left Fang Jian somewhat astonished. What kind of compliment could possibly be worth 1,000,000? As Luan Wani spoke, she discreetly observed Fang Jian, yet failed to notice the discontent and regret flickering in his eyes. She couldn't help but breathe a slight sigh of relief. If Fang Jian had shown any unusual reaction over the so-called 330,000 yuan, it would have truly disappointed her. Brother Fang, let's go to the music room. I want to hear your new song. Suddenly, someone wrapped their arms around Fang Jian's neck. Even with the chair between them, the sensation sent a chill down his spine. Hey, Missy, I'm driving here. Fang Jian patted her arm. Let go. I don't want 3 lives on the line. Pfft, like you're even on the road yet, Wang Donglian retorted. Just tell me, are we going or not? Fang Jian glanced at Luan Wani. What about you, Luan? I don't have class this afternoon, and I'd love to hear Brother Fang's new song early, Luan Wani replied without hesitation. Alright, since you two want to hear it, let's go. Fang Jian said, immediately turning the ignition and starting the car. Wang Donglian gritted her teeth in frustration, her mouth agape as her 2 faintly visible little fangs snapped at the air. The sight of her frenzied expression in the rearview mirror was surprisingly adorable. Fang Jian suddenly recalled an animated series. Xiao Hu. Wang Tiger really did have that festive look about him. The car soon arrived at Fortune Center, and the 3 entered the music room. This time, Fang Jian knew his way around like the back of his hand. Although Robert wasn't there, meaning one less pair of hands. But today, Luan Wani had joined them. This top graduate from the Shanghai Conservatory of Music might not be as skilled as Robert in operating the equipment. Her grasp of musical sensibility far surpassed his. Thus, with the 3 working in concert, they managed to record the new piece in just over an hour. After fiddling with the equipment for a long time, Wang Donglian suddenly sat down and sighed, "Oh my, brother Fang's playing is so amazing, I have no idea how to mix this properly." Fang Jian listened silently for a while, then shot her a look. Though he played beautifully, with almost no flaws. But it was only almost flawless. Wang Donglian possessed exceptional tuning skills. After her subtle adjustments, the piece did indeed feel a bit smoother. She could convey the piece's artistic intent in a more fitting manner. Such an ability was actually quite rare. After all, most people would naturally listen to the perfect version after downloading a piece. The more flawless the performance, the higher the praise. Of course, live performances are an exception. The atmosphere of a live setting demands energy, not flawlessness. And absolute perfection is impossible anyway. Generally speaking, if a concert is truly flawless from start to finish, no imperfections whatsoever, no off-key notes or distorted sounds, then there's only one possibility. A possibility best left unsaid. Putting down his headphones, Fang Jian scolded with a smile, "Missy, you did a great job." "Thanks." Wang Donglian's face immediately lit up with a smile. After tidying up, the three of them had dinner together before Fang Jian drove them home. He dropped off Wang Donglian first, showing no mercy even as her little face puffed up with anger. Finally, when he dropped Luan Wani off outside her complex, her face flushed slightly as she murmured, "The day after tomorrow, bring 2 bottles of Maotai." Fang Jian's eyes lit up. "Not more than 1,000, right?" "You can drink some yourself," Luan Wani replied with a subtle smile before turning to leave. Left behind, Fang Jian felt a fiery heat consume him, nearly shattering his composure. Chapter 95, Picasso's Will. That evening, Fang Jian took a cold shower. Taking a cold shower in the dead of winter, only his current robust constitution saved him from ending up in the hospital the next day. He carefully reflected on how, since reuniting with his father in that dream and acquiring the 100 million yuan cash wall, not only had he begun martial arts training, but his life had also become more disciplined. For 3 or 4 whole months, he hadn't indulged in any of those pleasurable activities that delighted both body and mind. Looking back now, that level of self-restraint seemed almost unbelievable. Especially now that he had money, he'd turned into some kind of ascetic monk. As he'd always said, back in the day, he'd have jumped out of bed and driven straight out the door. But now, after muttering a few complaints under his breath, Fang Jian actually lay back down on the bed. He discovered with a touch of sadness that his willpower had grown far too strong. So strong that he no longer had any interest in those vulgar women. Under the weight of his unparalleled resolve, Fang Jian slowly drifted off to sleep. Then, he saw his father, just as he'd wished. "Dad, tonight, I want to see Master Li." "Ah, you want to see Master Li?" his father asked in surprise. "Didn't you say you're going to your wife's family the day after tomorrow?" "There are still 2 painters you haven't met yet." Fang Jian replied proudly, "There's still tomorrow. I have some matters I wish to discuss with the master." "All right, arrange it yourself." His father didn't insist, but instead summoned Master Li according to his son's wish. Now that the master-disciple relationship was formalized, Fang Jian's demeanor grew even more respectful. "Master," Fang Jian said solemnly, "I took on a disciple in the mortal realm. I taught him the horse stance." Li Shuwen glanced at him and asked, "How is his character?" "So far, so good." "Then put him through 2 years of training. If he endures, then teach him the real skills." Fang Jian gave a faint, bitter smile. "Master, times have changed since your era. If every disciple needs 2 years of tempering, they'd all run away." The loss of traditional martial arts was, of course, an inevitable consequence of firearms taking hold. But this practice of tempering first, then imparting true skills, might also be one of the main culprits. Today's youth ask them to train through the hottest summers and coldest winters, and many are willing to endure the hardship. But after enduring hardship, they expect results. If after 2 or 3 years of training, they still aren't taught real skills. Everyone's time is precious, and society offers so many choices. Why should I stake everything on one path? Li Shuwen remained silent for a long while before sighing. "Fang Jian, I understand your point. But before you take on a disciple, I hope you can see through their true nature. Passing on your skills to the wrong person would be a grave mistake." Fang Jian nodded firmly. "Master, I'll be careful." Li Shuwen waved his hand. "All right, let's continue." The 2 men assumed their stances and began sparring. In essence, Fang Jian unleashed his full power while Li Shuwen effortlessly parried and offered guidance. Even in the Republican era, a master of hidden force could already be renowned throughout a region. But that was merely the level of a master known throughout a single township or county. Compared to a renowned master like Li Shuwen, whose fame spread far and wide, there was still a considerable gap. 365 days. When this session concluded, Li Shuwen sighed and said, "Fang Jian, I've taught you everything I know about transforming force. If you wish to see me again, you must master it." Fang Jian nodded firmly. "Master, I won't disappoint you." Li Shuwen gave a slight nod. When they first met, Li Shuwen hadn't held high hopes for Fang Jian. Yet Fang Jian had stubbornly cultivated both external force and internal force in the mortal realm. The external force was manageable, it only required consistent consumption of medicinal meals, persistent training, and physical conditioning. With the foundation Li Shuwen had laid for him, it was entirely achievable. But the cultivation of hidden force? That was beyond Li Shuwen's expectations. Not only that, but after Fang Jian mastered the hidden force, his entire being underwent a profound transformation. That indomitable mental fortitude left even Li Shuwen profoundly shaken. This was the true reason Li Shuwen accepted Fang Jian. Now, though Fang Jian had not yet cultivated the transformative force in the mortal realm, and no one could predict when he might achieve it, but Li Shuwen had a feeling. He believed this kid could do it. Master, do you think there are still martial artists with Hua Jin in the mortal world? Fang Jian suddenly asked. Li Shuwen paused, surprised. Why do you ask? I encountered an underground fighter. Fang Jian recounted Hong Xiuqi's story. If someone fights in those matches for martial arts cultivation, could they also master hidden force and transformation force? Li Shuwen pondered for a long moment before replying, now that you mention it, it's possible. These underground fighters are just like us back in the day. Once they step into the ring, it's all up to fate. His expression suddenly hardened. Fang Jian, you listen to me, you're not going there. Fang Jian chuckled helplessly. Master, I understand. The underground fight scene was indeed a place where one could hone martial skills by staking their life. But it truly wasn't suited for him. The spiritual will gained from the Red Road wasn't meant for personal boxing matches. Even if it was for the sake of personal growth, it was still forbidden. Li Shuwen had cautioned him at length, fearing Fang Jian might venture there. In his current state, finding a worthy disciple in the mortal realm was incredibly difficult. If Fang Jian descended solely for boxing, Li Shuwen feared he might be so enraged he'd reincarnate on the spot. After seeing off his somewhat long-winded master, Fang Jian felt a warm glow in his heart. The sensation of being cared for by his master was truly pleasant. The following day, at noon and evening, summoning immense willpower, Fang Jian managed to fall asleep. Through his father's arrangements, he met two giants of Western painting. Vincent Willem van Gogh, Dutch post-impressionist painter. Notable works include The Starry Night, his series of self-portraits, and his Sunflower series. This guy had some mental issues. He shot himself at age 37. However, after his death, Van Gogh showed no signs of mental disorder when motivated by money. During the year he mentored Fang Jian, they conversed and laughed together, showing no signs whatsoever of suicidal tendencies. Perhaps this was because he had already attempted suicide once. And because he couldn't kill himself again in the afterlife. In any case, by the end of that year, Fang Jian's mastery of oil painting had earned Van Gogh's approval. It seemed Fang Jian's talent for oil painting surpassed his skill in traditional Chinese painting by just a little. During his second sleep, Fang Jian encountered another master. Pablo Picasso. A true artistic genius, the 20th century in the West belonged to Picasso. No other artist could match his versatility and style while remaining universally recognized. In the Western world, the name of this great painter is practically known to everyone. This old man lived to the ripe old age of 91. He was a Spanish painter and sculptor, a founder of modern art, and a leading figure of Western modernist painting. He stands as one of the most creative and profoundly influential artists of contemporary Western art, and among the greatest artistic geniuses of the 20th century. His iconic works Guernica, Dove of Peace, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, Life, and more are all world-class treasures. Of course, what truly captivated Fang Jian was the price tag on these paintings. Their staggering prices left even him feeling a sense of awe and longing. 365 days later, during a casual conversation, Fang Jian told Mr. Picasso that his posthumous works were selling like hotcakes in the mortal world, each piece worth a fortune. The old master fell silent for a moment, then before departing, handed Fang Jian a will. The will stated that he bequeathed all his paintings in the mortal realm to Fang Jian. Fang Jian stared in disbelief, speechless for a long time. How the hell am I supposed to prove to the world that this will was indeed made by Picasso? This truly is a global conundrum. Chapter 96, The Son-in-Law Arrives. The next day, after finishing his workout, Fang Jian picked up the phone. Brother Yuan, I want to buy 2 bottles of Maotai the good stuff. Yuan Chi chuckled, sure thing, bro, haven't seen you in months, where'd you strike it rich? Fang Jian chuckled, just messing around, scraping by following others around. If you're home, Yuan, I'll swing by. Alright, I'll be waiting. Soon, Fang Jian drove to Yuan Chi's house. This guy truly lived up to his reputation as a Maotai connoisseur. The sheer volume of Maotai in his room was enough to open a wholesale market. If you weren't a long-time customer, you'd probably suspect he was brewing his own liquor. After browsing around, Fang Jian immediately spotted a set he wanted. Mutai 95 Supreme Gold Red Rose Gold Sauce Color Black Blue Green Yellow 53% ABV ml 9 bottles. This was a complete set of Mutai liquor, totaling 9 bottles. Brother Yuan, what kind of liquor is this set? Oh, this is the Supreme 95 set, Yuan Chi replied with a smile. I only acquired 3 sets back then, and they've appreciated significantly since. A hint of pride tinged his words. Dealing in and collecting Mutai liquor was the most satisfying and joyful endeavor of his life. I want to buy this set. What's the price? Yuan Chi paused, then gave a wry smile. Brother, the market price for this set is over 120,000 yuan. But I'd like to keep it for a few more years. Why don't you trade for a few bottles instead? Fang Jian smiled faintly. 130,000. Yuan Qi hesitated. Bro, are you planning to give it as a gift? No, for myself. Yuan Qi rolled his eyes. Bro, I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you. If you're giving it as a gift, this set would definitely impress. But if you're drinking it yourself, this wine isn't any different from others from the same vintage. He paused, adding, it's just hype. Connoisseurs know that. Fang Jian nodded slightly. The fact that Yuan Qi was willing to speak so frankly proved he didn't see him as a sucker. Smiling, Fang Jian replied, thanks, brother Yuan. I get it, but I genuinely love it. Yuan Qi gave a wry smile. Ah, brother, to be honest, I was hoping to keep it in my collection for a few more years. Fang Jian thought for a moment and said, 150,000. Yuan Qi froze, eyeing Fang Jian suspiciously before suddenly laughing. My brother, you've struck gold. As a businessman himself, he knew how to read people. The ease in Fang Jian's voice when he raised the price could only mean one thing: he didn't consider the extra 30,000 yuan significant at all. Then he recalled Fang Jian's claim that he intended to drink the wine himself. If Yuan Qi couldn't discern that, then all his years in business would have been wasted. Fang Jian smiled faintly. Brother Yuan, you're joking. I just really like it, so I paid a little extra. Yuan Qi pondered for a moment before replying, you're right. You can't put a price on what I like. Fine, you can have it. Thanks, brother Yuan. Fang Jian opened his backpack, pulled out 15 stacks of cash, placed them on the table, and then carried the liquor away. Yuan Qi stared at the stack of cash on the table. He counted it first, then fell into deep thought. That kid Fang Jian really has been rolling in cash lately. But why does he always pay in cash? Could it be? Shaking his head, Yuan Qi immediately dismissed those unwarranted thoughts. I don't care how Fang Jian makes his money. All I know is he's a customer who buys liquor. I stockpile liquor, I sell liquor as long as it's not counterfeit, I'm not breaking any laws. No one can fault me for that. As for the money others make through their connections, that's their business. I'm not greedy. That's Yuan Qi's way of navigating the world. But alas, while everyone understands this principle, those who truly live without greed remain few and far between. Fang Jian placed the liquor in the car, paused for a moment, then sent a message to Luan Wani. Fang Jian, little Luan, a friend of mine wants to pay a visit. His father can hold his liquor, I bought 2 bottles. What would be a good gift for his mother? Give me some advice. She didn't reply immediately, but Fang Jian wasn't in a hurry. He waited patiently. 10 minutes later. Luan Wani, picture.jpg. Fang Jian opened it to find a picture of cosmetics. He looked it up online. The brand wasn't expensive, and the image showed just a single box, not a full set. Fang Jian chuckled smugly. When it came to choosing a gift that would both delight his in-laws and put their minds at ease, who could know better than his own daughter? Of course, not all children know their parents' preferences. But as long as Luan Wani knew, that was enough. As for that little brother at Luan Wani's house. He could wait. 1,000 yuan really couldn't buy much. After heading to the mall, Fang Jian quickly located the counter. Men shopping often have a strong sense of purpose. Buy and leave, no lingering. Though Fang Jian himself didn't know what exactly was inside that box of cosmetics, he followed the picture and bought it anyway. At 580 yuan, it wasn't expensive at all. He stopped by the old shop at noon. Seeing the funeral wreath and memorial goods store that had been closed for over 3 months, Fang Jian felt a flood of emotions. But in his current state of mind, he refused to be tied down by this shop anymore. Should he rent it out? Fang Jian pondered it but ultimately dismissed the idea. He simply dreaded the hassle. After all, he wasn't short on rental income. He visited the boxing gym and received a warm welcome from everyone. Here, the treatment Fang Jian received was no less than what he'd gotten at that music restaurant. He glanced over at Liang Chao. The kid was indeed practicing his horse stance just as he'd requested. Though it's still too early to see results, his enthusiasm is truly commendable. Fang Jian only hoped he could sustain this drive and not lose steam too quickly. Finally, after dragging things out until 4 in the afternoon, Fang Jian excused himself and left. Driving to the entrance of the residential complex, he dialed Luan Wani's number. Her address had only just been retrieved from WeChat. What a struggle. She wouldn't even give out her home address until the very last moment. Carrying the gift, Fang Jian stepped into the elevator. When the elevator doors opened, Fang Jian paused slightly. There she was, Luan Wani, standing outside her door, smiling warmly at him. She hadn't waited for him to knock but had opened the door gracefully to welcome him in. This gesture made Fang Jian feel quite at ease. After entering and changing his shoes, Fang Jian noticed a man in his 50s sitting on the sofa. His hair was streaked with gray, yet his gaze remained sharp. At the kitchen doorway stood a middle-aged woman in loungewear. Her features bore a resemblance to Luan Wani's. Though no longer young, she maintained an excellent figure. Her charm remained intact, and in her youth, she must have been a great beauty. Fang Jian set down the gifts, bowed slightly, and said, "Hello, uncle and auntie." The man on the sofa stood up and smiled. "Good to see you. It's rare to have Xiao Yi's friends come by. Please, have a seat." Fang Jian approached, and the man introduced himself. "I'm Luan Jingxiong, Xiao Yi's father. And that's her mother, Tan Moyang. She also has a younger brother, Luan Changyang, but he's out running wild and hasn't come back yet." Fang Jian walked over confidently and sat down. Though his movements were somewhat stiff, they were proper and measured, without any trace of timidity. His caution carried an air of composure. This was a natural demeanor cultivated from years of maintaining military posture, earning quiet approval from both elders. "Uncle, my name is Fang Jian. I'm Xiao Yi's friend." Outside, he could be called Xiao Luan, but not in front of her father. "Heh, I know. Xiao Yi has mentioned you several times." Fang Jian glanced at Luan Wani in surprise, only to see her face full of helplessness. "What do you mean, mentioned me several times? Every single time you asked me about it, you practically forced it out of me." Luan Jingxiong rubbed his hands together and suddenly asked, "Young Fang, do you know how to play chess? Chinese chess?" Fang Jian lowered his head slightly. "I know the rules a little." "Great. The food isn't ready yet. Let's play a game, just the two of us." Chapter 97, Shut Up. "Dad," Luan Wani called softly, her tone tinged with reproach. Luan Jingxiong laughed heartily. "It's fine. Just one game. It'll be quick." Luan Wani sighed helplessly. "Just one game, huh?" Luan Jingxiong's face was beaming with amusement. Alright, just one game." "Heh, as they say, one's chess character reflects one's true character. Playing chess is a good thing." Fang Jian paused slightly. He'd heard that one's drinking habits reflect their character, but never that one's chess habits reveal their character. What exactly does chess character represent as a statistical measure? Was it about gracefully conceding defeat or relentless offensive pressure? Never mind, he thought. Soon, the chessboard was set up. Holding the red pieces, Luan Jingxiong asked casually, "Little Fang, how many years have you been studying chess?" "Over 20 years. "Over 20 years? Luan Jingxiong seemed surprised. "Yeah, I picked up a bit watching the old men play in the park when I was a kid," Fang Jian replied with a smile. Only then did Luan Jingxiong realize what he was talking about. This wasn't what he meant by learning chess, he was referring to the proper, formal style of play. But then again, it made sense. If Xiao Fang's skills were truly exceptional, word would have spread throughout the community long ago. Why would it take until now? China may have a huge population, but the chess community isn't that big. In any city, the top masters are known by name, even if you haven't seen them play. After all, there are only so many tournaments each year. Anyone who participated and achieved notable results would inevitably gain some recognition within the community. The fact that no one has ever heard of Fang Jian means he's a complete newcomer, a nobody. Luan Jingxiong picked up the red cannon with complete ease. Cannon 2 moves to 5. A direct attack. Fang Jian smiled faintly and moved his knight from 8 to 7. The opening moves were swift from both players. Front cannon versus screen horse, everything was following the textbook moves. Luan Jingxiong glanced at Fang Jian in surprise. This kid plays with remarkable composure, clearly he's memorized the manuals too, not just winging it. Of course, there were masters in the real wild games too. But the paths taken in wild games and those in the manuals were, to some extent, different. Fang Jian's moves were entirely by the book, mirroring his demeanor and conduct flawless, leaving nothing to criticize. Even now, though, Luan Jingxiong still didn't take Fang Jian seriously. Opening sequences are the easiest to memorize. But the mid-game, that's where the real test begins. Though not as intricate as Go, the moves in Chinese chess are equally multifaceted and boundless. Once the middle game commenced, relying on any pre-memorized patterns became impossible. After another dozen moves, the smile on Luan Jingxiong's face faded, and his brow furrowed slightly. Strange. I haven't made any obvious mistakes along the way, so why am I suddenly at a disadvantage? Oh dear. This is bad. Luan Jingxiong took a step forward, his expression suddenly shifting. Then he saw Fang Jian's rook move 4 squares forward, capturing his knight. Although Luan Jingxiong could use his cannon to capture the rook, his other rook, now isolated and vulnerable, would also be taken. On the board, he instantly lost a major piece. Luan Jingxiong's mouth twitched. He wanted to take back the move, but glancing at his daughter, the words simply wouldn't come out. He laughed awkwardly and said, "Oh dear, a slip up. A slip up. Let's continue." He tried to reassure himself. No big deal, just a slip up. He'd be more careful later. Then, Luan Jingxiong's eyes widened. He stopped chatting and focused entirely on the game. Luan Wani had no interest in chess. Though she knew the moves, she understood nothing of the strategies. Just because dad was good at chess didn't mean his kids would be too. Still, Luan Wani could at least recognize a disadvantageous position. She glanced at Fang Jian, who remained silent, and felt quite surprised. Was brother Fang really this skilled at chess? Or had dad really underestimated him? The latter was probably more likely. Even a true grandmaster can have moments of oversight. Luan Wani rose and headed into the kitchen. Tan Moyang had already finished prepping all the ingredients and was tying on an apron, ready to start stir-frying. Seeing her daughter enter, she smiled. "What are you doing here? Go keep your dad company. Tell him to take it easy during the game, don't scare the other person off right away." Luan Wani's expression turned slightly peculiar. Tell dad to take it easy? If he takes it easy, the old man might not be able to sleep tonight. Noticing her daughter's uneasy expression, Tan Moyang asked in surprise, "What's wrong? Did your dad play too aggressively and wipe the board clean?" When playing chess, Wang Jingxiong sometimes enjoyed pulling pranks, devouring all his opponent's pieces until only a lone, defenseless king remained. Luan Wani shook her head and whispered, "This time, dad might actually lose." "What?" Tan Moyang froze, abandoning the stir-fry. She grabbed the spatula and stepped to the kitchen doorway, peering into the living room. Sure enough, both men were seated. Fang Jian appeared utterly calm and relaxed. It was her husband, Luan Jingxiong, who had once placed in the top 3 at Ningbo's amateur chess tournament, who now sat propping his chin in his hand, deep in thought. Tan Moyang knew well that whenever her husband made this gesture, it meant he was deep in contemplation. It also meant an extremely difficult choice had presented itself on the board. Typically, the ones who could push him to this point were seasoned veterans of his caliber, players he'd traded wins and losses with over the years. These were the heavyweights of Ningbo's chess scene. But this youngster? She'd never heard of him before. Suddenly, Tan Moyang watched her husband reach out, scramble the pieces on the board, and declare, "I made a careless mistake this round. My loss. Come on, let's play another game." Luan Wani stepped forward and said, "Dad, we agreed just one game." Luan Jingxiong waved his hand dismissively. "Ah, we haven't even eaten yet. It's still early, still early. One more game. It'll be quick." Watching her father blatantly refuse to give in, Luan Wani could only sigh helplessly. Fang Jian smiled faintly and said, "Shall we? It's fine. It's my honor to play a few games with your uncle." The two men reset their rooks, knights, and cannons, beginning a fresh game. Having learned his lesson from the previous loss, Luan Jingxiong was now fully focused. From the moment he picked up the pieces, he was completely focused, refusing to let even the slightest distraction enter his mind. Losing to an unknown amateur was no big deal. When he was in top form, he'd even defeated first Dan players before. Now that he was taking it seriously, he was absolutely certain he could crush this kid. Luan Jingxiong played with unwavering confidence. After playing a single game against Fang Jian, he had already discerned that Fang Jian's style favored defense. It was a style that blended defense with subtle aggression, a soft exterior concealing sharp edges. It was quite difficult to counter. Alright, then. This game, I'll defend. Let me show you the true skill of Ningbo's top defensive master, the amateur defensive master. Luan Jingxiong opened with the central elephant formation, advancing with extraordinary caution step by step. Then, slowly, steadily, he began to sink into deep contemplation and prolonged deliberation. Slam! The front door swung open as a tall young man trotted in, shouting, "Dad, Mom, is dinner ready yet? I'm starving." It was Luan Wani's younger brother, 17-year-old Luan Chengyang. "Shut up." Suddenly, a thunderous roar echoed through the living room. Luan Chengyang flinched and fell instantly silent. Even the clatter of cooking in the kitchen seemed to pause for a moment. Only Fang Jian remained as steady as a mountain, not the least bit startled. Having seen ghosts daily, Fang Jian had grown bold. Finding something in this world that could truly frighten him was no easy task. "What's the big fuss about?" Tan Moyang called from the kitchen. Luan Jingxiong snapped back to reality, offering an awkward smile. "Your son's back. He's so hyper he startled the guests." Luan Chengyang stood frozen before the shoe cabinet in the entryway, not daring to move, his face blank with confusion. "I scared the guests? Damn it, did I scare the guests, or did I get scared myself?" Chapter 98, I'm a little bit rich. "Dinner's ready, dinner's ready." Tan Moyang urged impatiently. "What are you playing? Finish eating first." Luan Jingxiong lifted his head, forcing a smile. "Heh, Xiaofeng, I'll concede this game. After dinner, we'll play another round." Fang Jian quickly reached out and messed up the board, saying, "Uncle, this game isn't over yet. It's a draw, of course. Let's start again after dinner." Luan Jingxiong's eyes lit up slightly. "Alright, good boy." Luan Wani watched her father, his face beaming with such affection he seemed ready to swear brotherhood with Fang Jian on the spot. A sudden thought struck her. What was her father doing? Could he really be swayed so easily? A table laden with dishes was brought in. Luan Wani gave Fang Jian a knowing glance. Fang Jian understood immediately and said, "Uncle, I brought 2 bottles of wine. Let's share them together." Wine, well, its value is beyond measure. Fine liquor is always expensive. But if you bring your own to share at the table, it's no big deal. "Great, I'll enjoy the treat," Luan Jingxiong said with a smile. But when he saw Fang Jian pull 2 bottles from the box, his expression shifted slightly. "Young Fang, this wine must be quite expensive, right?" Fang Jian smiled and replied, "Uncle, this is a set of wine I bought quite some time ago. I'd been saving it for a meaningful occasion. I think today is just such an occasion." Luan Jingxiong gave him a deep look and chuckled, "Alright, I'll join you in enjoying this treat." Though both sentences mentioned sharing in the treat, their underlying meanings were worlds apart. Still, he didn't stop Fang Jian from opening the bottles. In a way, that was already his approval. The meal unfolded with both host and guest thoroughly enjoying themselves. Fang Jian's drinking tolerance was average after 2 ounces, he politely declined further. But when it came to eating, he showed no restraint. He polished off 5 heaping bowls, devouring each one in just a few bites. When Luan Wani went into the kitchen to refill the rice, she scraped the bottom of the pot vigorously but couldn't get much more out. She murmured reproachfully, "Mom, I told you Fang Jian has a huge appetite. You should have steamed more rice." In the kitchen, Tan Mayan's face flushed slightly. She tapped her daughter's head and said, "You only mentioned his appetite, you didn't say he was a pig. This guy, even if you added up all 4 of us, he still eats more than all of us combined. 40 years ago, a man like this would never have found a wife. But nowadays." Seeing Fang Jian's open, unguarded expression, Tan Moyang felt a strange sense of admiration and reassurance. Another figure bounced into the kitchen. Luan Chengyang walked in holding a bowl and said, "Sis, are you that slow at serving rice? It's my turn now." Luan Wani shot her ungrateful younger brother a glare, tossed the rice scoop into the pot, and carried out the last half bowl of rice. Luan Chengyang's lips curled slightly as he muttered, "Mom, look at sis. Now that she has a husband, she doesn't care about us anymore. Hey, where's the rice?" Staring at the empty pot, he too was puzzled. Tan Moyang stifled a laugh. "Alright, I'll make you a bowl of noodles later. Go eat your vegetables first." At the table, Fang Jian devoured the last half bowl of rice without hesitation, finally feeling halfway full. Seeing Fang Jian finally put down his chopsticks, Luan Jingxiong, who had been impatiently waiting, pulled him over. "Finished eating? Come on, let's have another plate." Fang Jian nodded with a smile. The 2 men set up their pieces, assumed their stances, and plunged into another round of battle. Tan Moyang shook her head slightly. This old man really didn't know when to quit. Taking her daughter into the kitchen, Tan Moyang asked while washing dishes, "Xiaoyi, where did your friend learn to play chess? He seems even better than your dad." It wasn't bragging, Luan Jingxiong's skill was genuinely exceptional. He'd placed in the top 3 of a city-wide amateur tournament. Even if he was no longer at his peak, he was still far beyond the reach of ordinary players. If Fang Jian were a professional player with such skill, it wouldn't be surprising. But Fang Jian? She'd never even heard of him in these circles. Luan Wani pondered for a moment before saying, "Mom, brother Fang mentioned he started playing chess when he was young. He learned from the old men in the park. He's been playing for over 20 years now, and his skill is about the same as Dad's." It's not that surprising, right? Mother and daughter exchanged a glance. That explanation sounded plausible enough. But could an old man in the park really compare to a city-level amateur player? Finally, all the bowls, chopsticks, pots, and ladles were put away. The mother and daughter entered the living room, only to find the old man propping his chin up again. This time, even more outrageously, a cigarette was clamped between Luan Jingxiong's fingers. Working in government, it was only natural for the old man to pick up the habit. However, he was extremely disciplined in his personal conduct and never smoked at home. Even when he couldn't resist the urge, he would go for a walk outside, returning without a cigarette in hand. But now, he had started smoking. Mother and daughter exchanged another glance. They both understood. The old man had started smoking subconsciously. His entire focus was on the chessboard, leaving no room for anything else. So, without realizing it, he lit up. Tan Moyang pondered for a moment, then approached with a smile. "Zhenxiong, Xiaofang, and I need to discuss something." Luan Jingxiong's eyes remained fixed on the chessboard as he sank into deep thought, not uttering a word. Tan Moyang didn't wait long. Instead, she beckoned to Fang Jian and said, "Xiaofang, come here for a moment." Fang Jian stood up, casting a hesitant glance at Luan Jingxiong. Tan Moyang said lightly, "It's fine. Let him think it over first." Fang Jian pondered for a moment. Between his father-in-law and mother-in-law, it seemed the latter was the one he should curry favor with. He nodded to Luan Jingxiong and followed Tan Moyang into the study. Luan Wani's home spanned over 250 square meters. Besides 3 bedrooms, there was also a study. The study was quite spacious, filled with painting supplies, and several paintings adorned the walls. Yet despite the abundance of items, everything remained neatly arranged, without a hint of clutter. Tan Moyang smiled and said, "Little Fang, you hold your liquor well and play chess beautifully better than my old man. Where did you learn?" Fang Jian quickly replied, "Auntie, I learned from an old man in the park when I was little." "Oh? And later on? No formal training?" "No, I just bought a few books to read. Sometimes when I get itchy fingers, I play a few games online. After doing it enough, I picked up some tricks," Fang Jian said with a smile. Tan Moyang nodded slightly. Though she found it hard to believe, she knew Fang Jian was unlikely to lie. Playing chess wasn't exactly a big deal. There was no need to lie about something like that. Perhaps Fang Jian's talent for chess was something to envy. At that moment, she felt a pang of regret. If only Fang Jian had discovered this talent at a younger age. Perhaps he could have pursued a career in professional chess. But now, it was truly too late. At best, he could dabble in amateur tournaments to build a reputation. Regaining her composure, Tan Moyang asked, "Xiao Fang, do you know how to draw?" Fang Jian's eyes flickered slightly. He had assumed An Tan had called him in to ask some sensitive questions. Like whether he was a local, if his family owned property or a car. Did he have loans? What kind of job did he have? How much did he earn monthly? But Tan Moyang didn't mention any of these crucial points. Instead, she asked if he could draw. Fang Jian had never been on a blind date before, only seeing related short videos online. Now, Fang Jian was certain. Those short video creators were just a bunch of scammers trying to grab attention. It wasn't like that at all. Fang Jian glanced at the wall, recalling those 4 renowned painters from home and abroad, and a faint, confident smile spread across his face. "Auntie, I know a little bit." Chapter 99, Unique Charm. Tan Moyang found it somewhat amusing. Why was it always just a little bit? Earlier, when Wan Jingxiang asked him if he knew how to play chess, Xiao Fang had given the same reply. "Xiao Fang, you know that painting style?" Fang Jian's smile remained unchanged as he said, "I know a little bit of everything." "Oh? Just a little bit of everything, huh?" Tan Moyang finally showed some interest. The threshold for painting isn't high. Many children start learning it in kindergarten. Not to mention elementary and middle school. Of course, the art education during those years was nothing special, just enough to let them know the subject existed. But to say they learn it well? Ha! Tan Moyang pondered for a moment before saying, "What do you think of these paintings in the study?" She smiled. "Give me your opinion." There was more than one painting in the study, and more importantly, they covered a wide range of styles. There were sketches, traditional Chinese paintings, and oil paintings. But asking Fang Jian to critique them. Fang Jian was familiar with Qi Baishi and Tang Bohu, Vincent Willem van Gogh, and Pablo Picasso. These 4 were masters, true masters. He studied under them and saw their hand-painted works every day. Thus, Fang Jian's artistic vision had already reached remarkable heights. Now, gazing at the paintings in the study, Fang Jian truly didn't know how to begin. Was he supposed to go against his conscience and spout nonsense? But even if he were shameless enough, he genuinely didn't know how to critique them. His teachers had only ever instructed him on how to paint, how to infuse a painter's spirit and ideas into the work. They had never taught him how to point out flaws in another's work without causing offense. And these flaws weren't limited to just one area. Seeing Fang Jian fall silent, his face flushed slightly. Tan Moyang instantly understood, this kid was practically clueless about painting. At most, he picked up a paintbrush during art class at school, but his grades never exceeded 60 points, never failing, but never excelling either. Though she felt a pang of disappointment, she'd seen it all before and wasn't surprised. Painting was an art, not a means to make a living. It was only natural that most people didn't master it. Just as she was about to change the subject, Fang Jian volunteered unexpectedly, "Auntie, may I sketch a portrait for you?" Tan Moyang paused, looking at him in surprise. But seeing the clear, open honesty in Fang Jian's eyes, like still water, she smiled. "Sure, go ahead. Take your time, no rush. That old man will be pondering things for ages anyway." Fang Jian nodded and moved to the easel. The room was stocked with various papers, brushes, and other tools. Tan Moyang had essentially turned her study into a small studio. He selected a fresh sheet of paper and clipped it into place. Fang Jian picked up his brush and glanced at Tan Moyang first. Tan Moyang was no longer young. She was in her 40s this year, approaching 50. However, she maintained herself exceptionally well, appearing nearly a decade younger, as if she were in her late 30s, approaching 40. Moreover, being an artist who had painted her entire life, she instinctively stood tall and straight when someone wanted to paint her, like a model. Fang Jian merely glanced at her, and a rough idea formed in his mind. This ability was taught to her by the venerable Qi Baishi and the 2 masters Van Gogh and Picasso. The latter 2 masters, in particular, demanded the utmost precision in this regard. In Western painting, drawing is the absolute foundation. If one couldn't even master sketching, then oil painting was out of the question. Thus, under the rigorous guidance of those 2 masters, Fang Jian's foundational sketching skills became exceptionally solid. So solid, in fact, that to the eyes of ordinary artists, it seemed almost unreasonable. Fang Jian's hand moved with lightning speed, swiftly sketching the outline of a human figure. In the living room, Luan Shengyang stared at his deep and thought father with a peculiar look on his face. This was Luan Jingxiang's current state, his eyes fixed on the chessboard as if a flower bloomed upon it. Then, he absent-mindedly held a cigarette between his fingers, taking only one puff from start to finish. He let the cigarette burn, its scent drifting away. This was a side of his father he had never seen before. So, I felt a bit uneasy inside. "Sis, what's Dad up to?" Luan Shengyang whispered. Luan Wani shot him a glare. "He's studying the pieces. Don't you have eyes?" But Dad never took chess this seriously before. "He's possessed or something." "Put. Luan Wani spat lightly. Stop reading all those trashy novels. You're the one who's possessed. Still feeling annoyed, Luan Wani reached out and expertly grabbed her little brother's ear, twisting it as she scolded, "How dare you curse our dad like that?" Luan Changyang tilted his head, whimpering in pain but dared not argue with his big sister. After pleading for a few moments, Luan Wani finally let go. Tears welled in Luan Qingyang's eyes as he stood up and headed toward the study. Bullied by his sister, he naturally intended to go tell Mom. But when he reached the study door and peered inside, he instinctively pulled back, his eyes widening in shock. Holy crap, what was that? Mom stood in the corner, striking a pose. He recognized the pose well as a child, he'd often been roped into modeling for her. So he immediately knew she was posing. Meanwhile, Fang Jian was wielding his brush with lightning speed. In the quiet study, the sound of swoosh swoosh filled the air as Fang Jian painted. Painting? Luan Changyang felt as if he'd been struck blind. Just who was this brother-in-law? His sister said he played piano beautifully, could compose music, and was a musician. But now he's here at home, playing chess with Dad. Just look at Dad's possessed expression, his chess skills are clearly no joke. And now, in the home studio, his mom was actually willing to be a model? Luan Changyang felt like he'd been hit with a lot of surprises today. He turned and walked back to the living room, his mind elsewhere. Luan Wani was no fool. One glance told her something was off with her silly little brother. Changyang, come here. What's wrong? Luan Changyang pursed his lips. Sis, Mom's painting with him. Oh, Mom's dragging someone else into painting again? Luan Wani sighed, pressing her hand to her forehead. Everything about their family was wonderful, except that both elders had their own obsessions and were utterly absorbed in them. Her own friends dreaded coming over to play, largely because they were intimidated by the two elders. Especially the male friends once they arrived, forget about leaving the chess table. Female friends, meanwhile, were inevitably conscripted as models. Luan Qingyang's facial muscles twitched. Sis, Mom isn't dragging him to paint. He's painting Mom. What? Luan Wani's eyes widened in astonishment, as if she'd discovered a new continent. It was always Mom dragging friends to be models, why was it the other way around today? Come on, let's go see. The two of them made their way to the study, where they witnessed a scene that left them utterly astonished. A model and an artist. That was normal. But what was unusual was that the painter and the model had switched roles. Luan Wani bit her pearl-white teeth, tiptoeing inside as she cautiously glanced at Fang Jian. She was deeply worried. If Fang Jian had painted her mother as a bloodthirsty she-devil with a gaping maw, then, well, getting Fang Jian to visit their home in the future would likely become an impossible task. Yet, the moment she saw the half-finished sketch with her own eyes, her eyes suddenly lit up. This portrait. Luan Wani glanced at the portrait, then looked up at her mother. Tan Moyang stood smiling, perfectly still, her face radiating a warm, jade-like smile. She radiated an aura as elegant and dignified as orchids. Yet, upon looking at the portrait again, Luan Wani suddenly realized. This painting was no longer a matter of resemblance. It captured the spirit. It had even captured that unique aura her mother possessed. Painting. Truly is a marvel. Chapter 100, a bit embarrassing. Tan Moyang watched her children enter and leave in silence with a smile. Then, muffled voices drifted from the doorway. The voices weren't loud, but they carried a faint hint of astonishment. As a painting professor, Tan Moyang had sketched countless models throughout her career and had also posed as a model countless times herself. Thus, she had long learned to ignore those peculiar stares. But her eyesight was sharp. She could clearly see her son and daughter standing behind Fang Jian, their expressions suddenly turning blank. Amidst that blankness, there was also a palpable sense of delight. Tan Moyang instantly understood this young man was a talented painter. Otherwise, it wouldn't have left her son and daughter so astonished. Moreover, after they stepped outside, they chattered incessantly. This further proved that Xiao Fang's painting was exceptionally charming. At that moment, Tan Moyang's heart was filled with boundless curiosity. Just how good was Xiao Fang's work that it could move Luan Wani and her brother so deeply? After all, though neither sibling had inherited her artistic legacy, they had grown up immersed in her paintings. While their appreciation might not rival his own, it was certainly far superior to the average person's. In truth, her eldest daughter also possessed a certain talent for painting. Tan Moyang had once considered nurturing her daughter's artistic potential. But in the end, her daughter, gifted with exceptional musicality, chose the path of music. Still, she trusted her daughter's discerning eye. So, a piece that could astonish even her. A slight twitch crossed Tan Moyang's smile. She felt an almost impatient urge to see the painting on the easel immediately. Finally, Fang Jian set down his brush and looked at Tan Moyang before him. His brow furrowed slightly. Strange. She seemed perfectly fine just a moment ago. How could Aunt Tan's expression have shifted so suddenly? The serene atmosphere that had prevailed moments ago vanished in an instant. Instead, it seemed replaced by a mixture of anxiety and impatience. Glancing back at the sketchpad, Fang Jian sighed regretfully. Actually, Aunt Tan looked quite beautiful like this, much more spirited than before. Should he sketch another one? After a moment's thought, Fang Jian removed the paper and replaced it with a fresh sheet. Auntie Tan, I'll draw another one for you. Tan Moyang froze, her foot poised to step away, immediately retracting. But just as she was about to ask, she saw Fang Jian had already begun sketching. His utterly focused expression felt strangely familiar to Tan Moyang. It was the expression of an artist, wholly immersed in his work. As a painter herself, a true painter, Tan Moyang knew this look well. So she stood there obediently once more. Though her heart ached like a cat scratching at it, she forced herself to endure. This was a habit and composure cultivated through years of painting. Without such composure, one could never hope to become a competent painter. Fortunately, Fang Jian's sketching session didn't last long. Completing one sketch took only about 10 minutes. During that time, Wan Wani and her brother came in twice more. After each visit, the look in their eyes toward Fang Jian grew increasingly peculiar and exaggerated. It was a gaze like looking at a stranger, or perhaps an alien. In any case, it was utterly peculiar. Finally, Fang Jian finished the second painting. He glanced at it, satisfied it was fine, then stood up and said, "Aunt Tan, it's done." Though Tan Moyang felt impatient inside, she approached with a cheerful smile, as if nothing was amiss. Then she saw the two sketches. Then, the smile vanished from her face. Damn it, these were sketches drawn by little Fang? Sketches. This technique forms the foundation of Western painting. With just a pencil and paper, no pigments needed, they could be completed. Yet the more fundamental the medium, the more profound the insights it reveals. Both of Fang Jian's drawings depicted Tan Moyang herself. They look like her. Anyone who sees them will instinctively exclaim, "It looks just like him." But mere resemblance alone wouldn't cause Sister Luan Wani and her brother to lose their composure like this, nor would it shock Tan Moyang. Indeed, she was now genuinely startled. The two versions of herself in the painting shared identical clothing, identical surroundings, and identical figures. Yet their facial expressions held subtle variations, and the interplay of light and shadow created imperceptible shifts. And so, the same person depicted in the two paintings appeared strikingly different. One was gentle and refined, serene and tranquil. The other was eager and spirited, like a resilient rose, radiating a sharp, capable aura. Such subtle distinctions give rise to two entirely different personas. Such mastery. No, it could no longer be described as mere skill. In Tan Moyang's memory, she had never seen anyone's sketches surpass Fang Jian's. Truthfully, if it were just a single sketch, it would still be astonishing, but it absolutely couldn't produce this effect. But when two distinct sketches were placed side by side for comparison, the impact was 100 times more powerful than a single sketch alone. Even someone with no artistic background would think, "This guy really can draw." And those in the know would grasp its profound meaning. The artist behind these two works, if not a genius, must be a prodigy. Tan Moyang had originally intended to ask Fang Jian about his feelings toward oil painting and traditional Chinese painting, wondering which he excelled at more. But after seeing these two works, she suddenly felt hesitant to ask. Seeing her mother standing silently before the sketch, Wan Shengyang asked, "Mom, what do you think of Brother Fang's painting? I think it looks really lifelike." Tan Moyang snapped out of her reverie, glanced at Fang Jian, and said, "Xiao Fang, your painting is good, surprisingly good." Resemblance? It was far more than just resemblance. Fang Jian smiled. "Aunt Tan, you flatter me." Tan Moyang pondered for a moment before saying, "Xiao Fang, I'd like to display these two paintings at the school as examples and references for my students. Would you be willing to let me do that?" Had Fang Jian not painted so well, Tan Moyang would never have considered this. But now, not only did she want to do it, she had specifically asked Fang Jian for permission first. All of this stemmed from his talent. After witnessing his skill, Tan Moyang had subconsciously placed him on equal footing with herself. Fang Jian smiled. "Aunt Tan, it's fine. Whatever you decide." "All right." Tan Moyang nodded with satisfaction. Glancing at the studio walls, where her cherished works accumulated over the years hung, she suddenly felt a pang of embarrassment. "Shall we take Xiao Fang to the living room for tea? I'll tidy this place up, it's too messy to look at." Luan Wani paused, glancing at the immaculate studio. Where was the mess? But disobeying her mother wasn't an option. She could only lead Fang Jian and her younger brother to the living room. Then Tan Moyang closed the door and began taking down the paintings one by one. Soon, every painting vanished from the walls. The bare walls looked rather unsightly, but Tan Moyang felt a sense of relief. When her gaze fell once more upon the two sketches, Tan Moyang suddenly understood. When she had brought Xiao Fang in earlier, she had asked him to critique the artwork on the walls. Xiao Fang had looked troubled. She had assumed it was because he couldn't draw and didn't want to give a careless opinion. But now she realized. He genuinely dared not offer a rash opinion. But this hesitation wasn't because her paintings were so brilliant, it was because of her identity. Unconsciously, Tan Moyang felt a stinging heat rise to her cheeks. Oh dear, this was rather embarrassing. Chapter 101, Let me try tomorrow's match. In the living room, Luan Jingxiong remained silent. He'd been contemplating a single move for nearly half an hour, completely absorbed. One could only say this man was truly an old chess enthusiast. Suddenly, Luan Jingxiong sighed deeply and said, I've lost. His tone carried a hint of disappointment. Being defeated at his own forte was hardly something to be happy about. Fang Jian hurried over and said, Uncle, this is our first match. You're just getting used to my style. We'll get better with more practice. Luan Jingxiong laughed heartily, playfully poking him twice with his finger. Alright, then come over more often. We'll play many more games together. Yes, sir. Luan Jingxiong glanced at the liquor on the counter and asked, How many bottles do you have left at home? The entire set. Then bring them all out. I'll cook, you bring the wine. We'll drink it all. Alright. Luan Qingyan's eyes widened. He glanced at the Maotai bottle, then searched online. He whispered to his sister, Sis, is Dad trying to extort us? Luan Wani shot her brother a glare. We're drinking together. How is that demanding a bribe? Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. Luan Chengyang pouted. He used to be the most favored child in the family, but today it seemed different, leaving him feeling a bit down. Luan Jingxiong stood up, smiling. I'm getting old. Thinking too much earlier tired me out. I'll lie down for a bit. You young folks keep chatting. With that, he headed straight for the bedroom. As he passed the study, he hesitated before pushing open the door. He exchanged a glance with Tan Moyang. Then, something suddenly fell off. He scanned the study. Something seemed off, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Tan Moyang glanced at him and asked, What's wrong? Don't want to think about it anymore? No, I'm done thinking about it. I was a bit careless today. I'll walk with Xiao Fong next time. Luan Jingxiong yawned and said, I drank too much earlier. I'm going to lie down for a bit. Drinking too much was one thing, but overthinking had strained his brain. The combination of both left him genuinely exhausted. Only 3 people remained in the living room. Seeing Luan Chengyang looking a bit puffed up with anger, Fang Jian's thoughts stirred. This was his future brother-in-law. He couldn't exactly butter him up, but at the very least, he couldn't afford to make him dislike him. With a slight smile, Fang Jian said, Chengyang, right? I saw you had a great time when you came back. Luan Chengyang had no intention of responding, but suddenly caught his sister's gaze sharp as a knife's edge piercing his direction. He obediently replied, Brother Fang, I was playing basketball with my classmates earlier. Oh, so you like playing basketball? Before Luan Chengyang could respond, Luan Wani piped up, he's on the sports school basketball team. He's glued to that ball all day long. Anyone who didn't know better would think he was that A-list celebrity. What a? Fang Jian was confused too. What on earth was that? NBA. Luan Chengyang snapped angrily, Sis, if you don't know basketball, don't talk nonsense. Oh, the NBA. Fang Jian chuckled. Got it, the NBA, the professional league from the States. Right, that's the one. Luan Chengyang glanced at Fang Jian, his expression softening slightly. Brother Fang, you're really good at chess and painting. Fang Jian smiled faintly. Nothing special. I only know a little bit. Luan Chengyang eyed him. That just a little was pretty impressive. NBA? I know about that too, Luan Wani suddenly chimed in. The best player there is called Jordan, right? Luan Chengyang froze, his gaze slowly turning toward her, his expression oddly unsettling. Luan Wani blinked twice. Had she said something wrong? Fang Jian cleared his throat softly. Xiaoyi, you're right. Jordan is a modern basketball legend, the greatest player of the modern era. They call him the god of basketball. Luan Chengyang looked unconvinced. Brother Fang, Jordan retired ages ago. The modern basketball god is Kobe Bryant. Fang Jian smiled faintly. But Kobe retired too. Even after retirement, he remains the greatest basketball player of all time. Seeing the young man's stubborn persistence, Fang Jian immediately abandoned the argument. To be honest, Fang Jian wasn't particularly interested in the NBA. He watched both soccer and basketball. Whether it was Kobe, Shaq, or Anthony Davis, they all felt about the same to him as watching Messi, Ronaldo, and the like. He didn't hold any particular reverence for them. Seeing Fang Jian's nonchalant attitude, Luan Chengyang grew even more animated. Brother Fang, which star player are you most familiar with? Fang Jian paused, thought carefully, and replied, if I absolutely have to name one I know best. Diego, I guess. While he knew many other players, he'd never interacted with them personally. But with Mr. Maradona? They'd spent a whole year together. They were quite familiar. Dad, bro? What the heck is that? Luan Chengyang looked utterly confused. A flood of NBA stars flashed through his mind, yet he couldn't recall a single player whose name could possibly match those two characters. Brother Fang, who exactly are you talking about? Fang Jian smiled. Diego Maradona. Oh, the soccer guy. Diego might not ring a bell for many, but mention Maradona, and even basketball players would recognize the name. Some people are just like that, they've long since become legends of their generation. Their names transcend their own circles, becoming household names worldwide. Diego Maradona is absolutely one of them. Yeah, soccer, Fang Jian chuckled. I actually learned techniques from Maradona himself. Ah, Brother Fong, you learned Maradona's techniques, asked Luan Chengyang. Then you must be quite skilled at soccer? Not bad, just passable, Fong Jian replied modestly. I know a little bit. Ah, what a pity you didn't learn basketball instead. What difference would it make if I knew basketball? Fong Jian asked. It would be great if you did, Luan Chengyang said. Tomorrow's Sunday, and we have a game. If you know how, I'll bring you along to play. Fong Jian chuckled. You're in a different grade than me. Isn't that a bit much? What are you talking about? Luan Chengyang exclaimed. On the court, it's all about skill, not age. We've got a game scheduled against another team tomorrow. You should come watch, Brother Fong. Oh, which team? Not sure. My classmates set it up just a friendly game. Seems like an adult team. Fong Jian pondered for a moment before replying, sounds good. Actually, I used to play basketball when I was younger. If you don't mind, I'd love to give it a shot. Sure thing. Luan Chengyang nodded vigorously. They were all young people, and he didn't have any ulterior motives. Even though Fong Jian wasn't his classmate, their connection through his sister made hanging out perfectly normal. His classmates often brought their brothers and friends over to play ball too, everyone was used to it.